Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the 391st edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. Just got a bit distracted by the chat there. Welcome to you all in the chat. Ricky Gravel is phoning in. Maybe he's phoning in. Who knows? I might put the StreamYard chat up, actually. It's a bit of a light panel. John Wayne's there. So's Boom. So are the boys. Yeah, anyway, I'm Steve Wellings. Andy Patterson's here alongside me. You're listening to us on YouTube, 8 o'clock on a Sunday evening. You might be listening to us during the week on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Don't forget, wherever you are listening to us, leave a 5-star review. Nothing less than 5 stars is acceptable throughout the entire month of September. Also, if you're on Patreon, the RSS feed updates shortly after the show concludes. I'm all over the shop here tonight. Luckily, I have my trusty right-hand man alongside me, Andy Patterson. How are you, Andy? Calling in on location tonight. Are you keeping well?
Aye, location, mate. It's tablets galore, phones galore, and that. Computers took a wee bit of a dump this week, so it's had to go in for a bit of repair. Hopefully, they find anything untoward on my hard drives and stuff like that. That's kind of bean comment. But aye, kind of struggling this week actually. A bit of back pain and that. So I dumped a couple of Cocodamol and a Nurofen in my throat about 2 years ago, and I feel like I'm tripping when you got my bed a wee bit actually. So if I start kind of wandering off, slivering piss and that, it's no alcohol, it's pills.
If Andy wanders off anywhere, we'll keep the fort going. Yeah, hopefully nothing on the hard drive, anything like this anyway.
Bean! Would have been, could have been, should have been, never been. Baked bean, creepy bean, beanie, Rumpelstiltskin. We're on to you.
Yeah, I'll just say straight off the bat, I know the boys have been mentioning in the chat, I haven't meant to be like a Victor Meldew the last few weeks, but some of the porky chat like me, it just got out of control in the chat room. I like a porky gag like the rest of us. We all have a bit of a laugh and that, but it's just been straight up spam, relentless. Here we go, from like 8 o'clock through to 10:30, just non-stop stream, and people don't want to be talking about stuff if there's all that shit going on. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to start booting you if there's relentless porky spamming going on, because this is the asylum, man, and Porky's doing his thing. Fair play to him, he's doing well, but the trolling and the spamming is getting ridiculous now, so fuck it off. If you don't mind, talking of things that are getting ridiculous, Andy, what about Ericsson Lubin there over the weekend? They're tucked away in some kind of Connecticut bubble. I managed to watch the card from bottom to top. We'll be talking about Jaron Ennis very soon. Also, a little bit of Lubin against Gausha. Andy's tablet seems to have failed him. He's jumped off the call. So it's just Wellings on his own, sitting here talking shit. Tell you what, it's getting desperate times here, man, on the asylum on a Sunday evening. Andy's fallen off. We'll try and get him back on as soon as we can. If anybody wants to jump in, I'm going to put the invite in the chat as Andy joins us back again. I'll put the StreamYard invite in the chat there. And if you want to jump on, maybe Eggy, Phil, or any of the boys, then you are more than welcome. If you want to come on and span us, maybe a bit of pigeon Mike Tyson or something could be coming back again. Anyway, Andy, welcome back. I was saying about, we'll talk about Ennis in a minute, talk about King Tug. First of all, I mean, Lubin against Gausha. Gausha's like a glorified sparring partner. I was ready to shit all over this fight until it got to round 10. And fair play, he finally let the right hand go. Hurt Lubin. First thing I'll say about Lubin is he was coasting away. Don't blame him for not taking any risks because he wants to solidify the WBC number 1 ranking and that and get his shot. But is he a little bit suspect around the whiskers? I mean, is this guy going to get found out as he moves on up again?
Yeah, hopefully my sound's okay. I don't know if a couple of guys were saying it's a wee bit off, and hopefully it's fine. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was never impressed with Lubin. I know he was getting a lot of big push and a bit of hype in that maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe in the build up to the Charlo fight, which was a bit of a kind of shock knockout in that. But I think it stems from there. Just judging that, I mean, he was hurt with a right hand. I think it was it round 8. That's when it really kicked off actually, because it was a type of fight whereas you were questioning whether you were actually going to watch the actual end of the fight, and then when it kicked off in the 8th, he got hurt with a right hand kind of high in the head and stuff, and it just obviously wobbled the legs a wee bit. If that's an elite fighter he's facing there last night, like say a Charlo with power who's got the nasty streak in him and stuff, I think he'd have been taken out. Gausha's, he just doesn't got that kind of, well, put it this way, if Gausha's hurting you actually like that, and I think it just kind of doesn't bode well for like moving up in levels. I wouldn't be too much of a rush to fight, say, like say your Charlos, Dervachenko, or no Dervachenko, sorry, Rosario, sorry. I think those guys are slightly different levels, certainly in terms of power anyway. We just need to wait and see how it stems. But that was just awful to watch. I mean, it just looked like they were both kind of content to kind of box the whole fight. And then, as I say, the bout was just, okay, it was meant to happen last October. I just wish it never happened at all. Actually, just judging that last night. But I've seen enough of Lubin now to say that he might pick up a version of world belt. But as for an elite for a division. No, I don't see it. As I say, Gaucher Wobble, you suggest that the chin is definitely suspect. Certainly, I mean, okay, it was high in the head and that, but it could be the abilities to hold a shot decently. I think it was wobbled again in round 10, I think it was, and it was really kind of like the latter half of that fight, they kind of started to kind of having a go at each other, but at that point it was a wee bit kind of too late. Lost all interest trying to score it. I suppose Lubin probably won the fight, to be fair, and they landed a big shot late, but all in all, mate, that was an awful fight. And again, as I say, I've been looking forward to the Showtime cards coming up and stuff, but judging what we're just going off the form guide of somebody fighting like Frampton, we had Hearn a few weeks ago, and we had the fight again last week, and the fight again there last night with Lubin and that. This lockdown is probably having an effect on all the fighters and that, because there's clearly just no, I don't think there's so much to blow up for it. Maybe it's something to lack a crowd in that as well, but they look flat, these fights, and you just hope that the Charlo fights are going to be decent, because I'm looking forward to some of these cards coming up. But last night was just absolutely awful. The guy that was fighting Tug, though, I thought he put up a good performance. Came to fight. Hopefully he gets another chance as well at some point.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll move on to him very shortly. Just back on Lubin a second. Like I said about Gaucher, I can see why they're pushing him forward. He's a reasonably recognised name. This fight was supposed to happen before. Nathaniel Gallimore jumped in. Lubin, he's pretty safety first. I think it was about tactics there. John Wayne saying Charlo going to fuck Lubin up again. I think he will. I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if Charlo doesn't get rid of him in 5 or 6 rounds. If they sense weaknesses, those Charlos, they jump all over you. Showed that against Tony Harrison. Showed that against a number of fighters. If Charlo senses that Lubin is anywhere weak around the whiskers, then I agree with you, John. He's going to absolutely fuck him up. But the thing is, they are working on his faults. They think he leans in too much. They were saying that in the broadcast. He tends to lean in a little bit too much, Lubin. And that cost him against the Charlo fight, because that was when he got caught, wasn't it, Andy, against Charlo? He was leaning in and he got caught with that shot. And I think it was, is it Cunningham, Kevin Cunningham in the corner, or Derek James? I think it was Cunningham, was saying to him, look, you can't be doing that. You can't be leaning in. You need to be conservative and sort of step back. And it's making him not as exciting, but they're definitely trying to protect something, as we say, but change him at the same time stylistically.
Absolutely. Well, I say there is slight improvements. I mean, obviously, he's filled out a bit and stuff, and he's technically kind of trying to kind of polish it up a wee bit. But I suppose you could say Gaucher's a decent, polished, I suppose, so to say, a defensive fighter. Maybe that was part of what it was as well. Maybe I'm wrong with Gaucher and that, but Lubin, I get it. I just think at a certain level he's going to be a wee bit more cautious. Maybe the Charlo fight just still haunts him. He spoke big bollocks for that before that fight, and then they get iced like he did in one round. Humbled you like that, and I suppose. I mean, I just technically I know. I mean, what is he now? Mid-20s. I just think he's at his ceiling. To be honest with you, again, like Tony Harrison, for example, he brought him up. I'd favour Harrison to beat him. Rosario, without question. Charlo, without question. Maybe Mardromov. I would give Jarrett Hurd, even though he would probably struggle to make the weight. Tim Tszyu, I think Tim Tszyu would beat him. Absolutely would beat him, especially with the power in that right hand. And if he started working the head in that as well, I think he'd be in for a torrid night. And I would suggest that even Tim Tszyu would probably even knock him out, maybe late.
Yeah, Tim Tszyu can definitely punch, and if you can't take a shot, you're bang in trouble. They were talking about Teixeira going over to fight Tim Tszyu. That fight's not going to happen now. I think Teixeira is going to be fighting Brian Castaño, which is interesting. Castaño is someone who they should have done a bit more with, especially after the Lara fight. I really enjoyed the Lara fight. I thought it was a very good technical fight, and they didn't really do anything with Castaño after that for whatever reason. So I thought that was a bit strange. Ricky Gravel was asking in the chat what's going on next week. There's plenty going on. We will be discussing it as the evening progresses. Jamal Charlo's fighting Sergei Derevyanchenko. Jamel Charlo's fighting Jason Rosario. That's the interesting pay-per-view over there stateside. Also, Josh Taylor's fighting Apinon Kong Sang, so we'll be discussing that. You got Bolotniks against Hosea Burton in Latvia for the golden contract. Uniel Dortico is fighting Maris Bradis in the World Boxing Super Series final as well out in Germany. And there was one other one I had here. Tony Yoka as well is fighting Joanne De Hapas. But 5 minutes or so, I'll give our guest a ring just before we do so. Let's get on to the undercard then. As you mentioned, Andy, fair play to Kabaya Breedy. I thought he would give Tug a good fight. I'd seen a couple of his fights before. He looked a little bit more, not lethargic, but a bit slower, a bit more measured against the lower levels of opposition. I was surprised at the way he came out. I think he was fast, he was fit, he was having a good first round, right until he took that right hand at the end. He obviously got knocked down in the second round, and it looked like he was up shit creek, but he boxed well. His corner were very well organised. Thought Barry Hunter spoke very well, and they kept him in the fight, and he showed a lot. I think the problem was with Breedy, Andy. He fought like a puncher, even though he wasn't a puncher, and he kept on getting caught. He wasn't able to hurt Tug apart. I know he bloodied the nose and everything, but he gave a really good account of himself. And I remember last year, Juan Francisco Estrada defended his title, a super flyweight WBC title, whatever it was, against a guy called Dwayne Beeman. And Beeman did the same. Now, he got stopped, not like Breedy, but he came out and he had a go. And that's all you ask of people. If you're going to have a big opportunity on TV, come out, fight for the world title. At least make sure you leave nothing in the tank. And Kabaya Breedy, fair play to him. I want to see him again because he left nothing in the tank last night.
He pushed it all the way, and to be honest with you, you talk about lack of power. You know, I came to a wee bit of Tim Bradley clone about him.
Yeah, I thought that in his last fight because he sort of throwed the head in a bit as well, a bit of a Bradley. Yeah.
The first time I'd ever seen him, actually, I was mildly impressed. You know, just to come out and start taking it to the house fighter and that. You just got unlucky, I suppose, getting dropped early. But the Ember Bar, I think it was just like kind of just a wee better bit of schooling and stuff. But I didn't think the knockdowns were even undeterred Breedy in that. He just kept coming. He was trading right hands in the fifth and that as well. And I think he caught him in the Ember. It was late in the sixth and stuff. He quickly kind of had to kind of get out of dodge. But yeah, I mean, I've got great respect for him because he says he came, had a go, tough guy, gave a good account of himself. So I know a lot of guys were actually saying off the back of that fight, but maybe like to see Breedy fight a guy like Tyler McCreary, who I've never seen actually, but I did see something like going about on Twitter and that. So, so I say it's the first time watching Breedy, but I would like to see him again, just based off that. And I say, it's again, I was just thinking about comments. I was listening back in an old interview we did with Peter Fury a few weeks back and stuff. Peter was talking about Huey, for example. He says, "Look, I'm not worried about a zero or whatever." That now I don't know if Breedy had been beat before. I don't think he had been, but even in defeat, again, we're just mentioning, for example, a fighter there last week and that who got beat. Even in defeat, as long as you get a good credit yourself and stuff like that, people will respect you. They'll probably even want to see you again in that as well, even though you've got an L on your record and that. As long as you put up a good effort, guys will be happy to see you again. So hopefully, it's another opportunity.
Yeah, the scoring, Glenn Feldman had it 114-112 to Nyambia, and also Steve Weisfeld had it 114-113. I thought the 114-112 by Feldman was probably about right. I think he kept letting Breedy in. I could see where Farhood was coming from. I think the Showtime commentary, maybe Bernstein, that were indulging Farhood a little bit. He had it really, really wide. And the swing between Farhood's card, Andy, and the esteemed Don Trella Sr., who had it 115-111 to Breedy. I think Farhood had it like 116... 110, 116, 109 or something to Tug. The swing in those cards is absolutely remarkable. But was it the fact that Farhood was seeing Tug landing fewer shots but landing the much harder punches, whereas Trella was probably seeing Breedy not landing such hard punches, but he was just so active in all the fights and constantly trying. So it was a case of, whatever you like really between those two scorecards.
I was watching an ESPN Spanish feed I was listening to, so I didn't catch what Farhood was actually saying, but it could be that. I mean, it could be that the fact is that Donnie's went and picked output. You know what judges are like, if you listen to them, stuff like, especially the Yanks, that they love aggressive, come forward fighters, whereas maybe Farhood was picking, I don't know, maybe slightly quality shots and that, harder punches and that as well, by Tug and that, who knows. But that was a type of fight where it was like, was it 6 points, did you say that scorecard was?
115-111 to Breedy was Trella's. Now, I think Farhood had it like, say, by 6 or 7 the other way in favour of Tug.
I've just seen the other one was 140-130, 140-112. But yeah, it's probably kind of fair. Maybe just like, obviously, the 2 knockdowns that went against him and stuff, then he's gave Tug probably how many rounds after that? Maybe another 2 extra rounds and stuff on top of that. So yeah, I would need to go back and listen to his thoughts and his opinions on that one. But I just think he's maybe just based it off that actual fight. I just think he's went for Tug's basically better quality shots, I think.
Good stuff. Right, I am going to bring our first guest of the evening up, Andy. Feel free to talk about Tug going forward. As much as we're impressed with Breedy, were we as impressed with Tug? Did he really put himself back in the shot window ahead of a possible fight against the biggest guys in the division? Maybe a rematch with Gary Russell. Feel free to move on to Jaron Ennis if you need to. And Pedraza, a jag, but hopefully it won't come to that. But start off on Tug and see how you get on, sir.
Yeah, well, just quickly on Ennis. Now, obviously, I mean, definitely a big prospect. They can, well, not a prospect as such. Now, the 25 fights and stuff, but it was a vicious stoppage, and definitely him and Ortiz and that are obviously going to be the kind of up and coming fighters to kind of keep our eyes on in America. And that as for Tug and that featherweight, I try to think who the champions are. So you got Warrington, Santa Cruz, Russell. Who knows what Russell's doing at the minute? I forget who he's meant to be fighting. I don't know. Tug, who does he fight? I'm trying to think off the top of my head as to who is in camp. PBC. So any names in the chat, people could maybe just kind of use a shout out with it. But I'm just trying to think. I mean, obviously you got Mark McZio. I mean, he's out in the Philippines. Maybe Eddie would do some business with Al Heyman. Maybe get Josh Warrington involved there, because we've not really heard much what's happening with Josh and stuff like that. About his next fights, upcoming fights and stuff. So maybe Josh Warrington against Tug would be a fight to see, or maybe he's just wanting to get the BBC title shot. Who knows? He's wanting to hang on there for maybe Gary Russell. Kid Galahad's kind of high up the rankings as well. No one to see him fight. Mick Collins obviously there as well. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if they bring in Mariaga, who after his performance last week, as I say, he's taken up that role now, mantle of probably being a gatekeeper, journeyman type status and stuff. So I would probably think he's going to maybe go down that route until he gets a title fight arranged.
Thanks very much, Andy, for holding the fort there. Delighted to welcome our first guest of the evening on the call. It's Liam Taylor. How are you, Liam?
I'm good, thank you. Cheers.
Excellent stuff. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday evening. We'll get straight down to business. Obviously, you fought recently there against Darren Tetley. How did you get on with the training and stuff, Liam, with the current restrictions, COVID? How have you got on over the whole lockdown process?
Obviously, the start of lockdown, I think, found it a bit difficult, like probably everyone. But I just sort of did my own thing, out on the road bike, go a bit to the gym at the house, bit of training that way. And then, obviously, when they started getting lifted some of the restrictions, I could go to the boxing gym, fitness gym, a trainer. You have to book your time slot, so it wasn't too bad, to be honest. It was quite normal. If anything, a bit easier getting in the fitness gym and stuff. So it was all right.
Are you a full-time pro, Liam, or do you do anything on the side?
Yeah, I'm a full-time pro. Yeah.
Are you still in Steve Malick's gym at the moment?
I am. Yeah. Steve's my coach. Yeah.
How'd you get on with Steve and all that? What type of guys does he have you sparring with?
It just depends on fight. So for that fight, I sparred obviously Terry Flanagan because he's a Southpaw, he's my stablemate, and then sparred Josh Taylor. Went up to London sparring him. So just fight specific, I'd say. Whatever the opponent is, we were trying to source the right sparring. He's like that, Steve. He makes sure everything's perfect. He's a bit like a perfectionist, in that way. So very good coach, great to work with, and he's always professional.
Absolutely. You mentioned Josh Taylor there. He's obviously fighting next week. How was he looking? What's it like to fight Josh? How good is he?
Yeah, it's good. When he first hooked up with Ben Davis, they contacted us to spar at his gym before lockdown. So did a couple of sparring sessions and then obviously because we'd already sparred when this fight got announced, we contacted him, went up and sparred him 2 more times. But he's world class. We learned so much from him about. His timing is very good. He's got fast hands. He's a class fighter, but then you just keep learning. So I was lucky enough to share the ring with him a few times. Tell
us about Terry Flanagan as well. You mentioned Terry there. Obviously, he's been to the top and done it. What's it like to fight Terry?
Yeah, I think we were thinking to use Terry for the full sparring, but we've obviously been in the gym together for 4 or 5 years. We've sparred for probably 10 years, so we sort of know each other quite a lot. He knows what I'm going to do, I know what he's going to do. So it's a bit like chess, it's hard to spar each other, basically, to know what each of us are going to do.
Tell us about your training wise, about your diet and stuff. Weren't you on a vegan diet at one point? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, in between training camps, I'm vegan, but so Steve basically does all my nutrition. So we we worked because I didn't want to eat meat anymore. So I just said, like, can I stop? So he said, you can, but we'll have to just have fish a couple of days a week. So I have fish probably 4 times a week, but other than that, it's just it's just vegetables generally. Quinoa, grains. It's pretty interesting. I prefer it. I don't feel as bloated. I think the performance is better. I started doing it for health reasons to start with, and I think it was the right move for me. I make weight a little bit easier. I feel stronger.
Excellent. Do you think it's important to like cleanse the body, have a bit of a detox as well every now and again?
Yeah, definitely. I have like I say, I do like juicing as well, so that'll cleanse. And to be honest, I just think personally for me, meat wasn't agreeing with me. I just felt like it was bloating me, it slowed me down. It wasn't working for me, so I had to find something else to do, and I think I've got it right now.
Oh, well done. Good stuff. Darren Tetley then, obviously onto the important stuff over in the Production Park studios. He was undefeated from Bradford. What were your first thoughts when they came to you? I'm assuming Steve Wood came to you and put Tetley forward as an opponent.
TK, I'm not with Steve Wood anymore. It's just with TK. I knew him from obviously being amateurs. He was like a couple of years below me, but was all going through the schoolboys. So I knew he was a good fighter. But obviously, the current time, you've got to take any fight, and an undefeated southpaw isn't ideal. We knew that, but I was confident going into it that'd be too much for him, and I think that proved it on the night.
Yeah, you managed to obviously put him down as well. What was it like fighting in that sort of environment?
To be honest, the full thing was a bit weird. Yeah, it was more so like fight week. Obviously having to self-isolate in your room when you get your COVID test back. It was quite lonely fight week. Usually you've got a few people around you from the gym and stuff. But fight night, getting to the arena was strange because there was no noise at all. Like when you're warming up, there's usually people dotting about. It was just me and Steve in some little side changing room, quiet. No atmosphere. The fight itself, obviously, once you get in the ring, I'd say I couldn't tell any difference, to be honest. If anything, it was a bit better because I could hear Steve's instructions a bit more.
Before you fought Tetley, obviously you went in with Chris Jenkins there, British Commonwealth fight. It ended pretty much unsatisfactorily, as a lot of Chris Jenkins fights tend to do. He seems to get a lot of cuts, technical draws. Is it maybe his style or something?
I think so. I think he plays a victim a lot, saying that people jump in with their head, this and that, but he seems to come with his head a lot as well. Like I say, he cut me in that fight in the first round of a head clash. So I think it is sort of to do his own doing as well. It was one of them that fight was frustrating for that reason. And going into the fight, we knew that. I thought it was getting past a few rounds, but obviously I couldn't. I got into 20 seconds off the 4th round.
Whenever you're fighting somebody like that, does it start to play on your mind? Like you're expecting the head to be coming in any second, or what?
Yeah, obviously you're just trying to block it out. You're just focusing on your boxing, but it's just always in the back of my mind, panicking, thinking, right, try and keep clear of an head clash, or if I'm going to cut him, try and cut him with a punch, because obviously everyone knows he cuts really easy. I think he's been very lucky to still hold the British title.
Final few more for you, Liam, and we do thank you for your time. Just before we go on to that, any social media presence or anything you want to tell the listeners about?
I just use Instagram. I don't use it too often, but it's Liam Taylor 91. That's it.
And that's over on Twitter, yeah?
No, Instagram.
Instagram, yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about Tyrone Nurse. Obviously, you fought Tyrone in 2015, lost a unanimous decision, then went back in with him again, and I think you won a split, didn't you, in the rematch?
Yes, yeah. The 2015 fight was, a learning fight for me. I was 11-0 at the time. Again, I took it on 48 hours notice. He was supposed to be fighting Chris Jenkins for the British in Leeds. So Steve Wood at the time, who was my manager, rang me and said Jenkins has passed out or something in the gym. He's not going to be able to fight on Saturday. This was the Thursday morning. Do you want to weigh in tomorrow and fight? No. So, yeah, I will do. So, I weighed in, fought him. He was better than me on the night, simple as that. He was a little bit sharper, a bit more experienced. But I learned from it, and then in the rematch, I thought I won it quite comfortably. I think I won it by 4 rounds, but 2 of the judges fought, I think, 2 rounds and 1 thought it was a draw. So, yeah.
Yeah, obviously you got Darren Tetley out the way. Then any word on what's coming next? What would you prefer?
I don't know. It's going to be a bit of a mad one because obviously I think Jenkins has got to fight Conor Benn.
Yeah.
I think if Jenkins wins, he'll vacate because he'll have it outright. I think if Conor Benn wins, he'll probably get a voluntary. I can't see him picking me as a voluntary. So the British title, I think, is not going to be this year, or it won't be this year. So I'm going to have to have a fight hopefully December time. But the welterweight division is full of exciting fighters. So any sort of decent fight get offered, I'll definitely take.
Yeah, Conor Benn obviously has a bit of a target on his back because of his name. I saw Sky Sports tweeting out, who would you like to see Conor Benn fight for the British title? Like almost as if he can sort of pick his opponent or something. I'm sure you would. You'd love to get stuck in. There's a line of people who would love to get stuck into Conor Benn, I think.
Yeah, listen, it's one of them. The problem that he's got and he's always going to have is his dad, isn't it? It's the same as Chris Eubank had it at first, but with Conor Benn, I don't think his boxing skills are as good as what he thinks. So people are always going to want to fight him, because it's a big money fight. He's a big name. Sky Sports get behind him. He looks apart, but I think he'll come unstuck. Personally, we thought someone quite decent. I think he'll come unstuck.
Absolutely, that might be yourself. Thanks for joining us, Liam. We appreciate you giving up your time.
Mate.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
All the best, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Liam Taylor there, getting stuck in on a Sunday evening. Got a good win over former friend of the pod, Darren Tetley. Gabe is actually a big Darren Tetley fan, believe it or not. Well done to him. Well done to Rapping Rob Kelly for jumping on the call as well. Just before we bring our second guest of the evening in to talk a bit of Michael Watson, Rob Kelly is indeed with us. How are you, Rob? Are you keeping well there out in the wilds? All good? Rob, are you there? Oh, sorry. It's too wild for Rob Kelly. Just checking the chat there. Too wild for him. Andy, quick word on Liam Taylor. Obviously, you hooked us up with that one. He's going places, going in the right direction.
Yeah, it was a shame to hear him. He's not going to get a chance at the British title again. I'd have thought they might have even actually sanctioned that as an immediate rematch because obviously the way that fight ended. But obviously he's kept his name in there actually as well. So hopefully gets another shot at it. But says Tetley's now going to fight. No, not Tetley. Sorry, Jenkins is going to fight Ben now. Is that right?
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
Can you imagine that? What's Ben going to do with that title? Take it soon as.
People actually, Andy, were talking about Ben against Jerron Ennis. We haven't talked about Ennis yet. We will do. I mean, Ennis would absolutely destroy him.
Mutilate him, mate. He would mutilate him. Honestly, I mean, Ben. Obviously, I like Ben. He's all right. Like he's a good kid and stuff, but he's no his old man. He's no nowhere near that. Obviously, he's maybe kind of struggling for the lack of experience and amateur background and stuff. But clearly, it's going to be a work in progress for him. But there's levels. He's nowhere near that level at the minute. Maybe 5-6 years from now and stuff like that. But at the minute, I think Ennis would absolutely blast through him.
Lovely stuff, Andy. No chance of Rapping Rob Kelly just yet, but we do have a Rapping Rob Tabbitt. I don't know. Good evening, Rob. How are you?
Good evening, mate. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for joining us. Did you manage to catch anything over the weekend? Don't worry if you didn't.
I didn't catch anything live, much like a lot of other people in the chat. I'm a little bit too old and war-torn to make a lot of the American shows at the minute, but I did catch up with the Showtime card today. Obviously watched Darren Ennis. Thought it was very, very good. Had plans to stay up and then, just kind of fell asleep. I don't really have the staying power that I used to.
Don't we all? Yeah, just on Ennis very quickly. I have a long history, as many listeners of the show will tell you, of making bad predictions. I once thought that Broner was the heir to the Floyd Mayweather throne. So putting that up as a caveat, I think Ennis looks really, really good. Future pay-per-view potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody that you speak to kind of in boxing or people who have seen an awful lot of Darren Ennis all say the same thing. They say he's tremendously talented. Just kind of flown under the radar, I think, for the wider general boxing public, but obviously headlining shows and he's starting to make a lot more noise now. I remember I think I did a poll not too long ago about who do people see as the breakout star between Daniel Dubois, Ryan Garcia, Israel Madrimov and Bouts Ennis. And Ennis actually came bottom of that poll, I think, or he came third or fourth, and that kind of, well, that either says that I'm followed by a load of casuals, or that he's not necessarily as well known as his talent deserves. But yeah, I mean, I haven't been there since day dot. I think I watched him when he had a handful of fights. There was actually Ben Davison who put me onto him a while ago. And yeah, he's very, very impressive. I think he does everything, oozes quality in everything that he does. I think maybe if you're being like hyper critical, he does stay in the pocket a little bit too long for somebody with his skill set. But obviously, if he's getting the job done in spectacular style like he did last night, you can't really hold that against him. Obviously, it's an entertainment sport as well as anything else, and he looked fantastic last night.
He certainly did. A good assessment. So during the week or whenever it was, you managed to get a chance to talk to Michael Watson. How did you find Michael? Was he in good spirits?
He was. It was fantastic. I mean, it kind of happened very, very last minute. I'd just come back from leave, and the original guest that I had lined up for the podcast it was kind of up in the air whether or not he would do it, but it looked like he would. And then I came back from leave and he wouldn't. I had kind of 36 hours or so to find a guest. So I reached out to the lovely Geraldine Davis, the first lady of kind of boxing PR. And she put me in touch with Michael, with some of Michael's team around him, and we arranged a day. And it was, going into something like that. I mean, I've met Michael once before, but many years ago at a George Foreman kind of fan meet and greet thing. And Michael Watson kind of came in down a different kind of, everybody was waiting and queuing up to see George Foreman. It was at the Emirates, I think. And as soon as Michael Watson came in, basically the queue kind of halved and everybody went over to Michael Watson. But I mean, I haven't seen him since the carjacking. I haven't obviously seen too many interviews of him. So I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know, how he was nowadays, what he was able to do. But I mean, I was blown away really, like within the first 10 seconds of meeting him. I mean, as excited as I was to see him, his kind of energy and what he gives off to you, he actually makes you feel like, you're the special person, that he's actually here to see you. And it's a wonderful gift. And it was unbelievable, really. You kind of forget about his injury because he is so full of life. It's remarkable when you consider everything that he's gone through. It really does make you think about your own life and how you assess things and how you take things on.
Yeah, you mentioned there about the queue halving, and that actually brings me on to another fighter who had an excellent fight with Michael Watson back in the day. I think it was 1990. A certain Mike McCallum. I remember being in Vegas back in 2004 when Oscar De La Hoya fought Bernard Hopkins, and obviously all the usual faces were running around the place. Roberto Duran, Tyson was there, up and coming Miguel Cotto, and everyone was gravitating towards them. But there was one guy sitting in the corner, slightly overweight at the time. Not long after his fighting, I think he fought Roy Jones in the late 1990s. It was a certain Mike McCallum. Maybe not getting the love, the appreciation back then that he should have done during his career. An underrated fighter, McCallum, as I feel was Michael Watson. I thought you made quite a good point about Watson perhaps being the underappreciated part of the Ben Eubank Watson triangle, as was McCallum. They both were a little bit.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, as I mentioned to Michael, and he confirmed, really, he was such a nice man. He was quiet, he was unassuming. You had Nigel Benn, who was this ferocious knockout artist. You had Eubank, the extrovert, who was on the front pages as well as the back pages. And then you had kind of little Michael Watson from Islington, kind of mummy's boy and a very nice, kind-hearted guy. But he could really fight. And yeah, I think, and he agreed that he may have been underrated or certainly underestimated because of that. And similar, as you say, to Mike McCallum, who I actually met in Las Vegas. I've met him a couple of times now. He trains out of City Gym because obviously he's involved with various fighters now, Carsten and I in the corner, Devin Haney being one of them. And as you say, he's very unassuming, very under the radar now, much like kind of he was to a degree, at least in his career. And maybe isn't, when people are walking into these gyms in Vegas, they don't automatically look at Mike McCallum and go, oh my God, that's Mike McCallum. You're one of the greatest 154 pounders ever. And, it's one of those. Actually had a quite funny story with Mike McCallum. Obviously, the last time I was on the podcast, I spoke about my love for James Toney. Mike McCallum versus James Toney won, my favorite ever fight. And I was speaking to Mike about it, and I interviewed him, and we're kind of having a little bit of a chat off camera. And as I mentioned, he's like quiet, quite unassuming guy. And I kind of was in a little bit fanboy mode and just wanted to talk about him and James Toney. And he said, James Toney was a bad boy. And I said, yeah, he was. And then he looked at me, whispered really quietly. He said, but I was a bad boy too. And then give me a little dig in the ribs. So, which was really cool. Like to take a body shot from the body snatch.
Not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, in 30 years time, I'll probably tell people it was a fully fledged left hook to the body and I wore it, but it was a playful tap, but it's still, it still hurt a little bit. It has to get through my podgy belly. So
Yeah, taking a shot off the body snatcher is no easy feat. Obviously, you had to talk to Michael about quite difficult things. I remember interviewing Dex Spellman on here, who was talking about the Scott Westgarth fight. It's not easy talking about guys when it comes to sort of tragedy. You know, it's a hard line to take. How did it feel to sort of talk to Michael and the responses he was giving to that night he fought Eubank in the rematch?
I mean, obviously, with Michael, his story is no secret. I'm hardly the first person to cover his story and his injury, and you know, he has spoken in the past about Chris and the fact that he has, you know, he's forgiven Chris, and he speaks highly of Chris and his faith, and that being a kind of significant factor in him coming to that. And obviously, when you consider, you know, the life-changing injury that he suffered, you know, hearing that previously kind of put me at ease. I mean, if it hadn't have been that sort of situation, then maybe I would have been a little bit hesitant. But again, it kind of goes back to within the first 10, 15 seconds of meeting him, he's still sharp, he's still bright, you know, he's got his wits about him, he's still funny, and he really puts you at ease. So I didn't necessarily feel too kind of hesitant with asking him questions about that. Obviously, again, kind of because I've heard him speak on it before, but he does bring you in and he does make you feel so much more comfortable. And as I say, it does get to a point where you do genuinely kind of forget about his injury, because he is sharp, he is still interested in you. It's not just one-way traffic. He just, obviously, his speech is slow and he can't do certain things physically, of course, but you know, he makes things very, very easy, very, very easy.
A few guys in the chat are throwing in some questions, some not so complimentary, as you might expect. Ricky Gravel says, though, did they find them who robbed Michael Watson's car? Obviously, that carjacking incident.
Yes, they did. That was I think it was solved a couple of years back now, 2 or 3 years ago, and they were incarcerated because of it. Actually, randomly, while I was kind of looking through interviews and kind of doing a little bit of prep before meeting Michael Watson, I stumbled across the Tony Bellew interview on IFL, where he was how do I put this? He was putting out what he would do to the people who did that to Michael Watson. That didn't quite happen, but they have been incarcerated. But yeah, I mean, again, he kind of looks at things in such a positive light that it was. He said to me, you know, God above protected me. My faith in God helped me get through it and allowed me to kind of move on with my life. But yeah, a really horrible thing to happen to somebody so vulnerable in Michael Watson, or anybody, but especially somebody like that.
Absolutely. JG's thrown in a question as well for you, Rob. He said, ask Rob, does he ever get asked by promoters not to ask awkward questions?
Very rarely, but it does happen. Generally speaking, I will only kind of adhere to stuff like that for things that are in court, already in court. But it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. But yeah, probably not as often as people expect sometimes. But yeah, it does happen.
Just before we move off the Michael Watson thing, just quick word on the first Eubank fight. I remember watching it live. We're sort of all running around the playground on Monday morning, pretending we were Watson or Eubank, particularly Watson. I mean, we obviously thought, a lot of people thought that Michael got the win in the first fight.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And so did Michael. I think so did Chris, really. I mean, it was a fantastic fight. When I spoke to Michael about it, I kind of, again, drawing on his faith and how he kind of looks at things. I said to him at the time, like, how did you feel about that? Were you angry? Were you upset? You seem like such a settled man. You seem like such a man who's close to God. And he did say that it really lit a fire under him, which I wasn't necessarily expecting him to say. And he said that going into that rematch, he trained like an animal and he knew that he had to knock Chris out. And that's the way that he had to do it. He did say that he felt that the scorecards or the decision was certainly settled before the final bell because of the money and everything that Eubank brought to the fight game in this country. You know, the showbiz, the extrovert style and stuff like that. But he said that, you know, going into the rematch, he was really revved up from the first fight, and we saw that in his performance. I mean, he gave Eubank he beat him even more decisively in the second fight. Obviously, unfortunately, got stopped, but was winning the fight at a canter, the rematch.
Ames has thrown in a question. Take Ames, shout out to him, mutual friend. He says, how did you think Dave took to Watson, and hearing of the injury firsthand, how do you think Dave Allen will take that on going forward?
It's a good question. I would hope that it would certainly stop him fucking around and would take his boxing more seriously. I think it was definitely an eye-opener. I know Dave well enough to know when something does sort of resonate with him and hit home, and he did seem upset by it. And you know, when we spoke about after we'd kind of done our interview with Michael and he'd been at the studio for a couple of hours and him and Dave had kind of bantered off each other and stuff like that. The debrief was supposed to be 5 minutes, and then it kind of went into something a bit different, where we were talking about the injuries that he suffered in the David Price fight, and like the feeling of paralysis in the ambulance on the way to the hospital after that, and not knowing what was happening, and not understanding whether or not he would walk again, or whether, certainly not fight again, but walk again. And I do hope that it does make him think about things. Obviously, his setup now is a lot different to where it used to be. Certainly when I first knew Dave, he's with MTK, Jamie Moore, so it's more of a settled environment. But you can, as everybody knows, with fighters or anything in general, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And Dave, by his own admission, is his own worst enemy. You can have everything that you want and everything that you need around you, but ultimately it has to be you who puts the work in. He's just gone off today to spar Alexander Usyk for a couple of weeks. He's going to come back. I think he's going to go and spar Alexander Povetkin. So, I mean, you can't get better sparring or experience than something like that. But it's when he's not busy that he needs to be mindful, stay in the gym, keep his weight down. We've all seen Dave over the years kind of capitulate with his mental health and lead a very public at times illness. And, he'd be the first to admit that. And I think that meeting Michael Watson, I would hope at least, would make him think about things. He's not a kid anymore. He's not 22, 23. He's taken a lot of shots, not necessarily just in fights, but sparring all of these top heavyweights at GB and around the world all over the years. He can't really take too many more shots. Certainly, he doesn't need another David Price night on his resume. I would hope that he will take it in, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. And I say that as somebody who knows Dave pretty well, so it's ultimately up to him.
Yeah, absolutely, as it is with every fighter. Josh Taylor's fighting next week. You spent obviously a lot of time interviewing Josh, also Shane McGuigan and back in the day. How do you think Josh will get on? I mean, the opponent's not the strongest, is it really?
Appian Kongson, I think he appears very limited. Obviously, he's been mandatory for the IBF for a long time. So this is a fight that has been kind of floating around for a long time. When there was the issue with Ivan Baranchyk around the World Boxing Super Series, Kongson flew over and he was around, so he was ready to step in. So it's not, it's somebody who Josh knows well. Obviously, initially when he would have had an eye on him or been thinking about him as a potential opponent, he would have been with Shane McGuigan. He's now with Ben Davison. Kongson can punch. He can really punch. He does look limited. I think his feet are quite slow and he is a little bit rigid, but I don't think Josh Taylor stylistically needs to be taking the shots that he took against Ivan Baranchyk, for example, and at times the Regis Prograis fight. Obviously, stylistically, worlds apart from Appin and Kongson, but Kongson Akihiro Kondo, who's a tough, rugged fighter, never been stopped, and he laid him out with one of the most picture-perfect uppercuts that you've seen. So he can obviously hit, and Josh has been in a lot of tough fights. I mean, he's been pushed very well in his career so far, and he's had great fights at great times, I think, and he certainly learned from them. But also coming with that is fighting against high-level opponents and taking shots. I think what he's going to be working on, or what he would have worked on with Ben, having known Ben as well fairly well, is his long-range boxing. We all know about Josh Taylor in the pocket. Well, everybody apparently, apart from Andre Ward, knows about Josh Taylor in the pocket and what he likes to do. He likes to get in close, tuck up, catches too many shots, but he likes to give better than he gets. I think he's going to need a little bit more tact against, I think a little bit more tact would serve him better against the Kongson. I think the only way that he could lose this fight is if he's careless on the inside and gives away free shots. And against somebody who can punch like that, who is still somewhat of an unknown quantity, but he can clearly hit, then you don't want to give him those free shots.
Yeah. Final couple of questions for you, unless the chat have anything they want to throw in. Eggy Phil says, would Rob say the relationship with the WBC is one of the strongest he has with the social? Talk about your relationship with the WBC, Rob, if you would.
Yeah, potentially. It's kind of crept up on me. Shout out Eggy Phil. He's always out on Twitter. He's always showing the social a lot of support. I really appreciate that. But yeah, with the WBC, it kind of just crept up on me. I've been interviewing Mauricio for probably, 2.5 years. And it started off probably once every couple of months. And then it was once a month. And then whenever we saw each other in America, we kind of got together. And to his credit, he's always taken an interview from me, even when he's kind of known that the questions that I'm going to ask him are potentially not not really designed to make him look good. I think it's no secret that the franchise title and certain rules and regulations or certain judgments made by the WBC really do rub fans up the wrong way, and fans want to know answers. And to Mauricio's credit, he's willing to sit down and take the questions. Whether people like his answers or whether he gives the answers that people want from him is another story. But yeah, I mean, he's always been very good with me, Mauricio, and I can't really fault him for that. As far as heads of governing bodies go, I think he's probably the most accessible. But maybe that's because he's probably the one who has to face most questions, and he has most people, calling him out on certain things. But I do believe that deep down, Mauricio does care for the sport, which is ultimately, I think, the most important thing for anybody in boxing, certainly people in positions of power. So yeah, I'd say it probably is one of my strongest relationships. I'm due to catch up with him at some point this week as well. I think the convention next year is in Thailand, which would be interesting. The convention this year was on Zoom, less interesting, although you could sit around in your pants, which is good. But Mauricio, yeah, he's an interesting character, certainly an interesting character, as you would be, kind of born into the family that he was born into and been around boxing his entire life. He's got some stories.
I'm sure he has. Son of Jose running the old, the old charity over there is Mauricio. Final one for you then, Rob, before we let you go. Dillian Whyte, he's woken up now, fighting Alexander Povetkin in this rematch. What are your thoughts on them making it next, making it so soon? The sort of knockout day rule, it's going to take place in November. What's your overall thoughts on them making this rematch?
Well, I don't think that any neurologist would say that it's a good idea to be back. But it's not necessarily the fight. I mean, the fight is going to be just shy of 3 months from that knockout, which is obviously incredibly soon for such a brutal, conclusive knockout. But it's not necessarily just that. He's going to be sparring. He's going to be in the gym. I don't know. I'm not a neurologist, but I'm pretty sure that any neurologist would say that that's not adequate or sufficient rest time for such a knockout. I'm not really sure what the intention behind it is, to be honest with you. I don't believe that the WBC will elevate him back to where he was as the mandatory. I spoke to Mauricio in the immediate aftermath of the first fight. He told me that now Fury will box Wilder for a third time, and then he will have a voluntary. If, for example, Fury boxes Wilder, then has a voluntary, then goes into AJ Fury 1 and AJ Fury 2, you're kind of looking at the end. I mean, you're looking at probably mid-2022. So with that in mind, why is there this great need to rush into a rematch when you're potentially not going to box for this title, the WBC title, for 2 years? So that is a little bit puzzling to me. I think if it was a different part of the year, they may have waited. Obviously, they're going in November. Anthony Joshua is going on pay-per-view in December. Nobody runs pay-per-views in January. So I think they wanted to get it done as soon as they could, under the guise or under the proviso that they would be reinstated with a similar mandatory that they had before. That I don't believe is going to happen. I believe if Dillian Whyte wins, he will still have to wait a minimum of 12 months. I think if AJ Fury happens, then it's going to be significantly longer. If Povetkin wins, it will be a year from November the 21st before a mandatory is called. He'll have the same situation. Fury will take a voluntary and then go into AJ Fury, Povetkin's going to have to wait. So it is a head scratcher for me. I have to be honest. I don't really see the need to go in there so soon. I think Dillian Whyte needs to go back and have a look at what caused that knockout. It wasn't a lucky shot. It didn't come from nowhere. Alexander Povetkin has been, he's not the same fighter. I think that's obvious, and I think that's clear for anybody to see. But he's been doing this for the best part of 20 years. He's a well-schooled, wily veteran, Olympic gold medalist. His only 2 losses are against a prime Vladimir Klitschko and arguably a prime Anthony Joshua as well. So getting in on the inside is what Povetkin does. And I feel like if you've prepared for Alexander Povetkin, that should have been probably number one. And if he still managed to unlock the door, and he did have success early on in that fight as well, whether it was acknowledged or not by the commentary is another story. But if he was able to unlock the door, and it only took him 4.5, 5 rounds to do so, then that's got to be a concern. Obviously, we've seen the changes with Dillian Whyte's camp in the build-up. He's now with Xavier Miller as opposed to Mark Tibbs. Surely, coming off the back of such a heavy knockout loss in your first fight with a new trainer, you might want to take a step back and have a look at things. But he's not going to. In a way, you can commend him for obviously wanting to get straight back in there and right what he feels is a wrong. But I do think it's a risk and an unnecessary one.
Absolutely, Rob. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday evening. Pleasure, sir.
Thanks very much, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Take it easy, dude.
Thank you.
Rob Tabbitt there, disappearing off. What about rapping Rob Kelly? Rapping away there. How are you, Roberto?
I'm flying it. I haven't seen any fights, but I've had a few drinks, so anything happens. Anything could go. Super chat. What are we saying? Super chat. How are the boys in fucking Craggy Island tonight? Any donations? No. What's that?
They're off fighting, maybe like John and Mary somewhere, I think, Rob.
What were you asking me about my new t-shirt range? Oh, I've got a new t-shirt range that you can buy off my Twitter, everybody. I'm just getting that out there really quick.
Oh dear. How are you then, Rob? You haven't seen too much. I saw a video today flying about on WhatsApp of some local fella standing on top of a roof with no top on, shouting, about to jump. I don't think you're quite at that stage yet, are you, Rob?
No, but I'm close to it. I'm close. If I'm on the beer on a Sunday night, I'm close. Fucking 9 months of lockdown, man. It's starting to get to me now. To be honest with you, I feel bad coming on the show when I haven't seen as much fights, but I'm hanging on for October. October's going to be a big month. There's a lot of fights in October. We got Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, Leo Santa Cruz, and Tank Davis. So I've got a bit of stuff to whet my appetite, stuff that I'm going to be really into. I'm not as into Erickson Lubin versus fucking Terrell Goucher, where Erickson Lubin beats Goucher in a 12-rounder and then says he's putting the welterweight division on notice because he felt like he hurt him in the last round. Like, this is the fucking guy who was fucking lying flat after 30 seconds against Charlo. Like, he's not beating anyone in the top. Like, he's not getting a fight with Terence Crawford anyway, so he's going to be fed to somebody else from Al. I think he's getting the winner of Charlo Rosario, isn't he? So he's going to be on his back again in another 30 seconds.
I'm going to say he'll be getting himself lubing up again. He'll be lubing up, ready for a beating.
Yeah, I don't think he's fucking something that the listeners are on the edge of their seats waiting to hear rapping Rob Kelly's take on, like, for some reason. But yeah, happy to contribute where I can.
Thanks for coming on, Rob. Like I always say to everybody, I said to Andy as well, I know sometimes the guys say, I haven't seen anything, I'll not come on. Just come on anyway. We can always flick it around, talk a bit of Canelo, talk a bit of heavyweights. There's always questions coming in from the chat, from the Patreon. We can talk about anything. If you haven't seen anything, don't worry about it. You can still come on and join us. It's never stopped Dave the Hater Low back all these years. He hasn't watched boxing in about 10 years and he still comes on and joins us anyway, Rob.
He's brilliant for the impressions, though, isn't he?
Yeah. Exactly. Love a bit of hater, Dave. So, Andy, just before we move on there, we've had Liam Taylor, we've had Rob Tabbitt. I just want to say quickly, I did mention to Rob there, and I'm deadly serious about this Jaron Ennis. He's only 22 years of age. Absolute banger. This Abreu reminded me a bit of Edison Miranda. He was wild, he was tough, he was a puncher. And that uppercut Ennis landed on Abreu. He took a right hand and off the back of the right hand, twisted into place and banged him with an uppercut, sent the guy on the floor. Don't think the referee covered himself in glory, moving Abreu around the ring, didn't really take control of the low blow situation. Abreu's temperature was rising. I really like the look of Ennis. I'm loathed to go over the top because you know my history, but I think he looks class, Andy.
He is class. And I must say as well, as I think with him and Ortiz now in the division, I think the welterweight division is going to have two really good stars coming up in the next, I don't know, I'm going to say next 2 years. You know me, I'm very high on Virgil Ortiz. This guy who I haven't really seen much Boots Ennis, to be honest with you. His record isn't all that great, to be honest with you. I think he's now ready for a step up. Really is. I'm saying the same about Ortiz. I would stick Ortiz with anybody in the top 10 at welterweight right now. And again, I'm not going to go too heavy like yourself on that, but I think there's a lot there to kind of appreciate and say to yourself, yeah, I would stick him with anybody in the top 10 as well. So Ennis and Ortiz, to me, are the future of the welterweight division. Definitely champions in waiting. Obviously, there's going to be an issue here with cross promotions and stuff like that. I know Ortiz is with Golden Boy. Who's Ennis with again? He's with Bob, eh?
No, he's Heyman, isn't he?
BBC, sorry, I get mixed up. Yeah, well, we'll wait and see anyway. Obviously, I mean, he's in the right stable, I suppose. Boots Ennis for the likes of the top names, Pacquiao, Spence, Porter. I'll tell you what, I would put Ortiz and Ennis in with likes of Sean Porter right now. That's how confident I am in these guys. Maybe even Mikey Garcia. That's how confident I am in these two guys, especially Ortiz.
Yeah, I like a bit of Ennis. Just before we come back to you, Andy, I'm going to give the Patreon subscribers a bit of a shout out. I haven't given them a shout out in a few weeks. Good lads over there, including Steve Turton with his own podcast, Conversations with the Pope. Good listen, is that Swaggy Taggy's there? Martin, Joe Kennedy, friend of the pod, Ted Barrett, Danny Young, who was on last week with us, James Bernard, Gav, David Doyle, Nathan Newman, who was knocking about in the chat somewhere, Owen Spillane, good fella as well, Jason Cheel, Daniel Adams, John Swan, Jasper, and Ryan Deal. A few Ryan Deal questions coming up, the real deal himself. Over on ESPN, Andy, we're pretty much in the same agreement before we started here. I said I downloaded the Jose Pedraza, Javier Molina fight, didn't get hold of the Ajagba, Jonathan Rice fight, but as soon as I saw the press release coming through, telling me they'd gone to decisions and stuff, even though Eggy Phil is giving Ajagba a pat on the back, saying that he boxed pretty well, showed a different dimension to his game. I wasn't watching that on a Sunday, and you were pretty much the same. So if you want to talk about that, go ahead. If not, go straight into Hrgovic's opponent, which I believe is annoying you.
Yeah, well, I watched Pedraza against Molina. Pedraza was really good. I think just his experience really told, actually. I think he could have got the stoppage, but as I say, he was pretty much perfect. I think shot selection and he was foot movement and stuff. I get what Eggy Phil's saying about Ajagba, but there's still, to me, he's still one-dimensional, he's still stiff, he's still upright and stuff. So, still a work in progress. I still think as well, actually, he's a bit chinny, and I think he's easily going to be taken out at some point. So we'll wait and see how it goes. Well, I suppose jumping on to next week's action, I suppose. Obviously, you've got that card coming for Denmark. You've got Tony Yoka fighting in France. But just on the topic of Filip Hrgovic and stuff, this is, again, he must be the victim of what's happened, the situation stuff, but surely to Christ you can get a better opponent for Filip Hrgovic than Andres Pala, who hasn't been seen in a professional boxing ring for 6 years since David Price sparked him in, was it 3 rounds, whatever it is. And Hrgovic is like supposed to be this upcoming monster, superstar, ranked in the top, I don't know, 10, 15 in each ranking body and stuff like that, and he's fighting a stiff who hasn't seen action in 6 years. Then it doesn't even bear thinking about as to what kind of condition this guy's going to be in actually as well. So I just thought that opponent's absolute shambles for a supposed. I mean, how can I put it? I mean, even for a prospect, you wouldn't put in shit like that. I mean, okay, we've seen opponents come in 2 years, 18 months out the ring and stuff. 6 years for a guy who's supposedly this elite talent, which I don't buy into just now. But I just think that opponent's absolutely disgraceful for Hrgovic.
Yeah, Hrgovic needs to step it on up. Question coming in for you, Rob. I don't know how long you want to talk about this. Probably not for too long, to be honest. This is from Ryan, the real deal again. Gilberto Ramirez. Will I ever watch a full Zurdo Ramirez fight, says Ryan. And he's going through some of the options here. Let's just have a look at Gilberto's record, shall we? Because it's pretty underwhelming. Okay. Are you there, Rob? Are you interested in Ramirez? He hasn't fought since April 2019 against Tommy Carpence. He won by retirement. That's nearly 18 months ago. He's left Bob now, hasn't he? I think he's maybe going to Eddie or something. Before that, we're looking at Jesse Hart, Roma Angulo, Habib Ahmed, Hart again, Bursak, Abraham. What's going on with Ramirez, Rob? Are we ever going to see him in a decent fight? Are they going to maybe move him, try and put him in against a Canelo, possibly somebody like that? I mean, does he interest you at all?
I think he'd be fucking rejected for the Canelo fight, wouldn't he? Like, I don't think they'd even settle on Gilberto Ramirez. Like, his career's been a non-event. As you said, you're listing some of the fellas on BoxRec that he's fought. I've never fucking heard of some of them. Like, so I don't know. Andy, where are you tonight, by the way, baby? You sound like you're in the fucking getting ready for the swingers party or something. You're getting all revved up. What's going on? I have some nerve, by the way, asking where fellas are because of the sound quality, don't they? I'm normally out in the fucking hurricane. One fella said last week, like, he said, this fella sounds like he's up on a ladder.
Doing a bit of work. Here, Rob, there's Eggy Phil said there, what do you think about Babic against Big Niall Kennedy? I have to be honest, I think Babic is wild swinging puncher, as shit as he looks. He's going to detonate Big Niall, isn't he?
Do you know what? I wouldn't be so sure. Like, Niall he's a tough operator, like, sparred with Joshua. I don't think Babic is going to have it all his own way. He's going to go and take his opportunity. Basil Kennedy has his limitations. Everybody knows it. Like, he's turned over pro very late. He's a full-time Garda policeman. So boxing is a kind of a part-time thing for him. He's done quite well with the Dropkick Murphys crowd, Ken Casey and that over in Boston. He's had a couple of big nights. So I don't think Babic is all that special that he could rule Basil Kennedy out, but he'll hang in there, he'll have a go, but if he becomes unstuck so be it. I'd say he'll have a chance. He'll put in a performance good enough to get himself another payday, I'd say. And I think that's the best he can probably hope for. But good on Basil Kennedy. He's a good old copper as well. He said he never did anybody for tax or insurance or anything like that. So you got to respect it.
Good lad. Yeah, well, good luck to Niall, obviously, there. Just think it might be a bit too much for him. Andy, big story of the week. Ricky Gravel was asking why we didn't cover it last week. Just got too much stuff to do, I suppose. Didn't get round to it. Obviously, Canelo Alverez filing a lawsuit against Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya, DAZN. Breach of contract. Had the article up there from Brian Campbell over on CBS. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it, at the moment? There's contracts between Canelo and Golden Boy. Maybe Oscar's making alternative contracts with DAZN behind his back. Everything will hopefully come out in the wash in court and we'll see exactly what's going on. I believe Oscar's promised him the Golovkin fight. He can't deliver. Alvarez is unhappy. He's got his lawyer involved. What do you make of the whole unseemly situation, Andy?
It's unfortunate. Suppose the biggest name fighter in the sport, basically sitting on the shelf, could be sitting on the shelf for a while actually as well. I mean, if you take the Andre Ward situation into account, which obviously is slightly different. He wasn't suing his promoter in some way. You know, he was suing his promoter. He wasn't suing a network, but he was happy to sit out 2 years of his career to try and write his contract run down. But this is a complete, absolute. Just, you know, how can we put it? You know, Oscar's obviously went in there. He hasn't put it in the contract as such when he's doing the discussions with DAZN. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I was trying to get a hold of the paper. I haven't read it, but I haven't had a chance to. It looks like DAZN, you know, who are clearly at fault here as well. You know, you gave this guy, I think it was $300+ million over a certain period of fights or a certain period of years and stuff, and you're wanting what you call premium fighters. Well, end of the day as well, does this not prove that maybe Canelo's maybe not as great big star as what we think it is? If DAZN are really struggling for figures and subscriptions and stuff, that they're having to turn around and say to Canelo, listen, you have to fight Oscar. You have to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. You have to fight Jorge Masvidal. You know, two of which are not even boxers, and one's retired fucking boxing for about 15, 20 years or whatever it is and stuff. So, have they underestimated or overestimated Canelo's pulling power? You know, because they were expecting he was going to sign this big deal, and all these people are going to come across and stuff. He was going to be the crossover star, and I don't think he's really done that. He doesn't really speak English as much, especially in broadcast. I understand he speaks English, he understands it pretty well. But anytime I hear him, he never speaks in English, never tries to speak in English, doesn't make an effort or anything like that. Maybe he's just trying to kind of, stay loyal to his own hardcore fan base, which will obviously be the Mexicans and stuff. But I think there's a possible debate to be had. Is he the biggest name in the sport? Well, maybe he's not, because the subscriptions are not really kind of showing that he's actually bringing the fans in. He's trying to get out his contract. Well, I think you're going to find a major problem in that. If you're going to sign a contract like that, it's going to be hinged on the wording details and stuff, how the lawyers are going to say. I think he's on the plums, to be honest with you. He's got a contract. You probably need to abide by that contract, and it's going to be interesting to see how he argues as to how DAZN are not living up to it. Oscar's saying they're not living up to the deal of the contract. You could argue that it's no really their best interest because these opponents are bringing up here. Who knows? It's just an absolute mess, and I haven't really got many answers for it, to be honest with you, other than the fact is we need to get it fixed as soon as possible, because he's just basically holding up the division. Middleweights, super middleweights and stuff. It's just an absolute mess. It really is an absolute mess.
Yeah, $35 million a fight for Canelo minimum. That's the baseline. So he's obviously standing to make more if he possibly can. They were banking on the subscribers, I think. They're not come in. Pay-per-view, they ruled that out. They're going to have to go to pay-per-view. They should have included the pay-per-view model. As much as we shit on it and we moan about it, the pay-per-view model's there to make money, and DAZN can't come up with the cash that he's asking for. Just reading from this article, Rob, it says, I'm the pound-for-pound #1 in the world, said Alvarez. I'm not scared of any opponent in the ring, and I'm not going to let failures of my broadcaster or promoters keep me out of the ring. I filed the lawsuit so I can get back to boxing and give my fans the show they deserve. The question is, Rob, when's the next time do you think we'll see Canelo fighting, and on what network or in what situation do you think we will see him fighting next?
But next year, anyway.
Well, exactly. The thing is, you've got a number of variables here. You have the pandemic still in play, so Canelo cannot fight in front of under closed doors. He can't do it. He's too big of a draw, so you cannot possibly make. One of the biggest revenue generators for Canelo is the gate, and no matter where he fights, Possible homecoming in Mexico or Vegas or California, he is going to sell out. He's going to sell out the weigh-in as well, probably. So a big part of his bottom line, 35 million, comes from the gate. So they need that as well as the pay-per-view revenue. The other variable with this is that he's now gone the litigation route, which means that's going to fucking, these things don't get settled overnight in 6 weeks in court. Like, these things play on and on. We learned this from Andre Ward before. We learned this from Mikey Garcia before. You go the legal route, you're out of the game for 18 months at least. At least. So I don't know if this was the wisest move. He obviously believes in his stock. He obviously believes he has a strong case. Offering Oscar De La Hoya and George Masvidal as possible opponents for Canelo is beyond farcical. Beyond farcical. I mean, there's a rich pickings there from 175 to 60 that he could fight, Golovkin included. So I don't really know what the situation is here. I don't know who's going to be the benefactor for this. Obviously, it's going to be Canelo long run. He feels he's still early enough in the game where he can buy himself some time, where he's going to need to buy himself 18 months off. But if he's looking to get back in the ring, going the legal route is not the quick way about it, I'll tell you that.
Certainly isn't. As I said, Andy, I think Oscar hinged a lot of the DAZN negotiations on delivering the Triple G fight as it went on. Canelo obviously decided he hated Triple G, didn't want to give him the fight, said it wasn't in his terms. Oscar, I think it doesn't look good on Oscar, does it? As much as we loved him as a fighter, Andy, he's an absolute shit show as a promoter. I said before, I believe that maybe Richard Schaefer was holding that whole organisation together. And the cracks are just showing one after another. I mean, if Canelo goes, then surely Ryan Garcia will go as well. What's Oscar going to be left with? What can he actually deal with? Is he going to be sued personally against the company? Can Eric Gomez hold it together at all?
Well, you're right there. I mean, at the end of the day, Canelo must have been asking himself a question as well, because it was on the eve of the Floyd Mayweather fight. Oscar checks himself into rehab. On the night he's fighter's biggest fight, and he's nowhere to be seen. It's just unfortunate. I'm just looking through one of these articles and stuff like that. Oscar's saying that obviously they're going to arbitration, which is laid out in the contract with Canelo. I was actually going to add something else. I just lost my train of thought there. Actually, I was going to make 2 points, and the fucking second one's right out of my head. No, I'll come back to me. Sorry, mate.
No problem at all. Yeah. So, what about opponents?
Swingers party.
It's gone. Someone took the car keys. I think he was. What about the opponents then, Andy? Obviously, Canelo. I mean, we're led to believe they said they wanted to fight Yildirim, Rob, to sort of force the hand and sort of force the train along the road, didn't they? Really?
Well, Yildirim is a joke, man. He brings nothing to the table. No factor of interest whatsoever. His biggest appearance thus far is a fight where he got absolutely fucking sparkled by Chris Eubank Jr. So what does he bring to the table in a fight against Canelo? He doesn't bring a big fan base. He doesn't bring any kind of wow factor. He doesn't bring the if factor. Could he get one over on Canelo? So he may well be pound for pound number one in the sport, but he's going to be pound for pound sitting on the shelf. And I don't know who's to blame. I mean, B-Hop is involved in Golden Boy as well. How much input does he have? Like, this fucking, you know what I mean? Maybe it was Schaefer. Certainly it was a strong businessman, and maybe it looked like the way that in the past that it was Schaefer was a strong businessman. Oscar was pretty much the face. So was B-Hop the face of boxing. The guys who were for the fighters, the alternative to the Shark, Bob Arum and Don King. Like these were the good guys in the sports. Golden Boy Promotions trading off Oscar's name, and when Oscar's been left to steer the ship, Oscar has demons. We all know about that. Like, maybe these things are taking precedence in his life, and his eyes off the ball. He's missed the trick a little bit when it comes to promoting Canelo, who's a beast as a fighter and should be he was the rightful heir to the Mayweather throne, and should be probably one of the best known guys in the world, really, with his look, with his talent, with who he's fought. But yet he's not as big a star as that deal with DAZN says, and it leads me to think, like, I know I said it at the time and I was being nostalgic and I was very sad about it and everything, but like, is the death to HBO the death to boxing as we know it? Because none of these networks in the wake seem to have had, I know, right, granted we've had big fights since HBO folded. We've had the two Wilder Fury fights, we've had AJ and Ruiz, had big moments in the fight, certain Lomachenko fights and Crawford fights, but like, is HBO like the last of the great broadcasters? Because none of these networks seem to be able to get it together with the fighters. There's problems everywhere. The zone is a sinking ship. Matchroom's gone tits up. It's fucking Uncle Al has all the welterweights. There's no Crawford super fight. It's just like, is there a big gap there missing? Like there was some kind of shining beacon like amongst the cesspit of fucking TV broadcasters, promoters, and sanctioning bodies.
Yeah, this is the thing, Andy. Where's he going to end up? I suppose Espinoza said he'd be happy to welcome him. Obviously, they've dealt with him in the past. To be fair to Espinoza, he was asked the question, and he said if he becomes available, they're going to let the court proceedings take place first of all. Will he end up back with Oscar? Could he go to Showtime, HBO? Obviously, we look back at the HBO days with sepia tinted glasses. They were an absolute shit show towards the end. Some of the shows they were putting on. Will he go over to someone like Top Rank? What about Canelo signs with MTK? Andy, scenes?
Oh, scenes. MTK Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
we could hold them out. What do they call it again? Cancun. What do they call it? Sinaloa.
Sinaloa, yeah. You'd have all the cartels coming together, allegedly.
Diego Maradona loves that place, by the way.
The Guadalajara convention. Could you imagine that?
I actually remember what I was going to say. The second point, actually, it was about obviously this lawsuit. And it's partly what you also said as well. If Canelo and the Oscar are going to like say, sort things out. At the end of the day, can you imagine if Canelo just broke away there? Actually, the money he'd save, and not just that. I mean, the fact that Oscar's got to shit himself as well, because outside of Canelo, there's no other fighters he's got apart from Ryan Garcia and maybe Virgil Ortiz, right? Who they're no there just yet as named fighters or draws. But if you look at the past reports and stuff about the amount of money that Canelo was bringing into Golden Boy, it was simply this: he was Golden Boy, he was their business. So if he's no fighting and he's at the ring, as we maybe estimate, well, depending if this lawsuit gets thrown out again, or he's got to resubmit it by the end of the 28th of September. If he's at the ring for 2 years, what happens to Oscar's business? Does it fold? Because he's not getting fans in, he's not getting good gate monies, he's not getting good site fees and stuff like that, he's not getting pay-per-view. The zone are no approving opponents and stuff, so is he going to be a victim, like other businesses and stuff? Is he going to have to kind of wind up and stuff because he kind of get his cash cow in the ring and stuff? And Canelo
I'm just thinking of something. I'm wondering, is Canelo actually smarter than we give him credit for, because he knows because of the pandemic he's not going to be having a fight because he can't be back until the audiences are allowed in the stadium. So maybe he's making the legal move now when he knows he's going to be out anyway. Like.
Possibly, but then if you look at some of the states in America and that, they're actually allowing fans into NFL games. Australia's got fans in. I dare say Mexico would have situations where they could get fans in and that as well. So just need to take it by time and that. But I get that Canelo's problem is if you've got the zone saying, right, okay, we'll approve Callum Smith and stuff, but you have to take a pay cut. But look, he's got a contract as well. If that contract says, look, I've got a $35 million minimum or whatever it is and stuff, you can see his point of view. He's got a contract. I want my money. At the end of the day, we've all got contracts. I've got a contract. I want my fucking money at the end of the month. It's that simple.
Baby.
Exactly. And people say, well, he's a selfish bastard and stuff, because there's a pandemic, people are losing their houses, they're losing their jobs and stuff. Well, Canelo's, that's not his problem. He's looking after number one at the end of the day, and he's got a contract that says $35 million a fight. He wants his $35 million. So if you're going to pay me, then we'll just need to take it to court. But I don't think this will end well for Canelo somehow. Actually, I think there'll be something within the contract and stuff that he's going to have to bow it. I think he's going to have to kind of see it through probably. But if he does become a free agent and stuff for Golden Boy, which I think will be a good move for him, at least money wise, I can see Ryan Garcia doing the same because he's in the same camp. Maybe some of Canelo's team's been in his ear, maybe talking him up and that. We'll wait and see with that as well, but it's going to be interesting stuff. But you'd think as well as he's not going to be at the ring for 2 years. You'd like to hope no, but if he is, then
he'd be pushing it. He'd be close to it with what he's been out already and what he's going to be out after fighting a lawsuit. I had a point there and it's gone out of my head as well. It's contagious tonight.
You look at some of the people getting messy shit there for, like, say, his contract situation with Barcelona. and he didn't try and take it to court and that. Obviously, he must have found out there was a situation within that word in the contract that, yeah, I'm going to have to stick it out. I think that's what's going to happen to Canelo, because as I say, it's the lawsuit's already been thrown out at a first tier thing, I think it's called. So he's going to resubmit it by the 28th or something. So, and I think with Oscar saying they've got to go to arbitration and that as well. So there's obviously they'll need to sit down and have a chat.
That's the thing, though, as well. Right? I think we're all on the side of the fighters, right? So we all want to see the fighters get the large share of the cash. We don't want to see the promoters get it. We know about the horror stories of promoters days gone by with Don King, with allegedly guys in the UK too not getting paid. You know, these sharky steals and the cruel nature of boxing. So we do want to see the fighters get the money, but ultimately, when that happens, the fight fans suffer because the fights get held up. And fellas are too big to take this fight for this amount of money and this, that, and the third. And it's not like the days of Don King. At least when Don King was robbing the fighters, he was putting on stacked cards with competitive fights with world-class guys every fucking... You know what I mean? So, like, the fighters are benefiting, but the fight fans are suffering a little bit because the same ethos doesn't fucking seem to apply to the modern-day fighters, like.
That's a good point. Don King ripping people off to get an 8 world title fight, strong pay-per-view. Yeah, it doesn't exactly hold up. From Canelo, moving onwards then, shall we? Naturally, to the golden contract in Latvia. Ricards Bolotnik's got a surprise knockout win last time. He's going in against Jose Burton. Don't know if Sky will be showing that or not, because it's on the same night as the World Boxing Super Series final, which we will be discussing shortly. Just before we do so, yes, Ricky Gravel, come into that actually, what you just mentioned. Before we do so, indeed, shout out to some more of the boys over on patreon.com/boxing asylum, including Graham Taylor, Jeff Conway, George Barry, Craig Jevons, Don McNamara, John Kearns, Nathan Shaw, Joe Ringer, James Addy, and Marco Barrera, Marty G, James Monaghan, Zeconomics, good lad that he is, Emmett O'Keefe, and Thomas Byrne. A couple of things this week then, Rob, for you. First of all, Lloyd Hoonigan, the ragamuffin, seems to be in a bit of trouble, not too well at the moment. Hopefully he gets better soon. Also, someone who's definitely not very well, Panama Lewis, who passed away. Bit of a checkered character indeed, the aforementioned Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, and he'll be able to give you the name of the documentary, I'm sure, but the documentary about Billy Collins and Louis
Assault in the Ring.
Yeah,
Assault in the Ring.
Absolutely harrowing from a boxer. And it's interesting, Rob Tabbitt was talking about Michael Watson tonight. I suppose sometimes I try to blank out like those instances and not really go back to them as much, because when I remember watching them live, they're disturbing. Like McClellan, Ben in the aftermath when you found what happened. Like, I couldn't go back and watch that for years. Like, same with what I've never gone back and watched Watson and Eubank too, because I remember really feeling for Michael Watson at the time, because he was such a cool customer. The way he had beaten Bain, you know, he had a great style, straight punching. That's what's kind of forgotten about him. He was a tremendous fighter, like as you mentioned tonight. So, these kind of things, when you watch him and know that they're part of the sport that we love, it could be completely harrowing. And to see like Panama Lewis back in Zab Judah's corner illegally in the Cotto fight, I believe it was, just shows the ruthless nature of boxing. Question marks about him when he was in Aaron Pryor's corner as well. And just to touch on, I mean, the good part of the sport, Lloyd Hoonigan, what a warrior. Welterweight, beat the great Don Curry. Beat Morris Blocker, I believe, Johnny Bumphus, lost to Mark Breland and Lloyd Hoonigan, but you know, as Eddie Foote said about, or Marlon Starling rather, as Eddie Foote said about Marlon Starling, he was as good a welterweight as he'd ever seen and could have hung in the era of Robinson, so no shame to losing to guys like that. Gave it all the ring, all action fighters, so hopefully he pulls through. Lloyd the ragamuffin, Hoonigan, some great nights in the Albert Hall with him and Mickey Duff in the corner, some real television gold with Harry Carpenter on the commentary and that. Like, so anyone feeling nostalgic or anything, definitely go back and check out some of his fights, because they're well worth watching. Like, great fighter.
Just a quick one, Andy, from you on Panama Lewis, Assault in the Ring. If you go into YouTube and type in shocking boxing documentary, I actually uploaded it on my Irish Boxing Review channel. I just checked, there's about 350,000 views, so people seem to be enjoying it. That's I couldn't put the title up for obvious reasons. That's the one itself, obviously Billy Collins. It's a hard watch going back and knowing what happened. And Lewis Resto, wasn't it? A quicker synopsis of the night?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, this, Billy Collins was expected to kind of go into world titles and stuff, and just to see that kid's face just gradually, grotesquely swell up and stuff. Then you see Resto in the ring, after the fight, and that the Collins corner go up to him and they go to shake his hand as such, and then they feel his gloves. Literally see the guy press his finger into the glove, and it basically disappears into the material. Shout the referee over and stuff, and all hell breaks loose. What was really galling for me actually watching it at that documentary, and it was a few years ago actually, was Luis Resto going into a bar in Vegas, I think it was, where Panama Lewis is sitting. And he's kind of saying, I think he was asking the question. I think he was trying to kind of get Panama Lewis to kind of admit that what he'd done and stuff on camera and that, and he was like quietly saying to him, "Look, listen, just go away. It's over and done with," and all that sort of stuff. And Resto tried to pull his innocence, saying he was not aware. And then finally, right toward the end of that documentary, he finally admitted that he did. He was very, very aware of what was going on and stuff like that. So I think they both don't get jail time for it. Billy Resto, he became a full-blown alcoholic. So Billy Collins became a full-blown alcoholic after it. Couldn't fight again. Career was absolutely finished. Blurred vision, concussions, broken orbital bones, broken nose, just everything you can think of. The kid was like 23, 24-year-old, and be up on the scrap heap by that point and stuff. Took it hard. They ended up killing himself. I think drive his car into water or gas himself.
Into a tree or something, wasn't it? I think.
Something like that. Sad news.
Over a cliff.
Yeah, I've got no sympathy for Luis Resto in that documentary. To try and plead your innocence and then to finally admit that you were fully aware. Nah, man, fuck you.
Absolutely, Andy. Let's move on to the rest of the action that's going on next week. You are listening to the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast, episode 391. I'm Steve. Andy's with us, rapping Rob Kelly. We've had rapping Rob Tabbitt on the call as well. Also, Liam Taylor was with us earlier. The boys in the chat are having a great time there. Ricky Gravel's knocking about Curly Watts, Boxing's First, Tosh Bear. Who else have we got? Boxing Man, John Wayne, Ronnie Hussein, freshly married. Let's see what he's getting up to. The Invisible Man is there too. Lee the Alcoholic Frotch. Hope I don't miss anybody. AZ. Who else is in there? Take Ames as well is knocking about too. I think that'll do. Eggy Phil, yeah. Shout out to Eggy Phil. Right, what should we go on to then for next week? Any interest, Andy, in Tony Yoka against Johan de Hapas? Yoka's a strange one. He's in the ring. He's out the ring. He's not failing drugs tests. He's trying to avoid them like the plague. He's a decent fighter. I actually think that if we can forget about the outside of the ring activities, look at him purely in the ring. He's 7-0. De Hapas is a pretty good test, an all-French test for him. I'm pretty pleased with this as an opponent, actually.
Yeah, I suppose it's an easier fight to be made than any hassles and stuff. And I suppose De Hapas has been in with decent opposition. He's been with Povetkin and Hilarious. He's been in with
Wilder.
No, I was going to say the Baby Juice, Baby Miller.
Oh right, so it's a bit of a yardstick for Yoka, really.
Yeah, but he's also got a touring victory over the one and only Saul Farah as well. So I think Yoka's in for a hard night. No, to be honest,
has he really been in with Saul?
Aye, Saul Farah. Seriously,
I know Saul fought. Saul didn't fight. Was it Tep? No, it wasn't Tepper. Was it Char? Saul fought somebody, didn't he, recently? Oh no, it was a Romanian, maybe.
Well, I tell you, I was looking at BoxRec to see what was coming up, and that's why I was looking at October, because I saw Tony Yoka being one of the main cards next week. I said, "Fuck this, man! Holy shit, he is dog shit, isn't he? Like fucking Tony Yoka, holy fuck."
Tony Yoka couldn't break an egg. Well, De Hapas has got some chin, so if you can knock him out, we'll be suitably impressed. Rob, this might interest you. This might interest you next Saturday evening, Rob. I know you don't like staying in for a card, but Uniel Dortico against Maris Bradis, final of the World Boxing Super Series. It's almost been rushed through. We're waiting to see when it was going to happen. Germany in the Plaza Media Broadcasting Centre. Bradis is 26-1. Dortico's 24-1. They can both box. They can certainly both punch. IBF Cruiserweight title on the line. I think this is well worth looking at, Rob.
Yeah, I could see there being a few smacks in that one, all right. Like, be interesting to see can Dortico's KO Bradis. I think that's his best chance. I don't think he's going to outbox him. Bradis is good on his day, isn't he? He's only lost to Usyk, has he, Bradis?
Yep.
So yeah, he's a fucking operator. Like, yeah, so that's going to be a good fight. That'd be a bit high octane, actually. I'd enjoy that one. Like, thought he costs some puncher as well, like, isn't he? So yeah, that should be good. Like.
Yeah, it's a shame there's no crowd available there. I think they would have gone off. The undercard's not much to write home about. Sophie Alish on it. Leon Boone, 15-0, going in against an 8-rounder against Timo Lane. And Robert Talarek against Dennis, Radovan. I think it's Bradis to lose, probably, Andy, if he can box as clever as he possibly can. Stick to the jab, move about out the way of Dortico, try and take the power early and drag him late. I'd say Bradis on points, but he's always dangerous, that big shot, isn't he, Dortico?
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, I think it's a decent style fight, actually. I expect Dortico to come a bit, he's going to basically push on with that reach he's got. Was it 6 inches he's got on him? His cardio's pretty decent as well, so I suspect he's going to basically, be good combination punch and stuff, but I can expect anybody hearing Mum and talking about it, my missus talking on the phone. I was expect Dortico to get the punches going and stuff, but I expect British as well to kind of use his movement, side-to-side movement and stuff, work off centre line and that, and get his punches in the middle. I could maybe even see British kind of getting the fight by stoppage late as well, but I think the safe bet is probably British on points. But at the same time as well, he'll need to respect Dortico's power. It is real, but at the same time as well, he can be chinned at the same time.
Yes, I would imagine Brady's on points for myself. Moving on then, Rob. Josh Taylor against Appinon Kong Song. You can do so much with that surname, I suppose. Rob Tabbitt was saying he's a bit of a puncher. I think he's flat-footed. He hasn't really fought anybody. Taylor's going to have to be on his game. But it's all for him to lose, really. 16-0 against 16-0. There's a reason why they've put this on now, I suppose, behind closed doors. They wouldn't have really attracted a crowd. Get past this guy, Rob. On to the big ones. Josh Taylor. He's under a little bit of pressure, but I think he'll get past this fella.
Yeah, kind of typical first top-ranked fight for a top-ranked fighter. Don't think this guy's going to pose Josh Taylor too much problems outside of the puncher, and I think Josh Taylor's got a decent beard, man. I think he can take a smack. So in a tear-up, I'd favour him, and in a boxing match, I'd favour him. So I'd say he's heavy favourite for the stoppage. But yeah, he needs to look good. It's his first out now in front of a new audience, so he can't afford any slip-ups, and he doesn't want a boring performance or a gimme or anything like that. So he want to look sharp, I'd say. But I'd say he kind of breaks him down to the body and then stops him.
I'd say the same, Andy. He isn't going to want to stand in the pocket with this guy, give him any chance that he doesn't need to have. Jab away, soften him up, get rid of him again. It's difficult because Kong Song's such an unknown quantity, but Taylor's got to just get him out the way and get onto the big ones. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, just do a professional job, really. Less damage as possible. Hopefully, as Rob was saying, maybe he does hold his feet in the centre too long. And that one thing he does that Josh has got problems with is cuts and swellings and stuff. So I think we really need to see Josh just keep it at distance. And if he goes inside and that, just rip it and then come back out, get back on the jab and that again. I mean, I expect the Thai fighter to be tough and strong. He'll be in the fight for as long as possible and that, but he's never fought anybody as much as Josh's level before. I mean, the Japanese fighter that he beat, I think it's Kondo, probably the best winning on his record, and that it was a bit of an upset that victory as well. So he's out his shot, but we'll wait and see. But I do expect Josh to win. I expect him to win well, But as I say as well, it's not boding well for some of these fighters at the minute coming off lockdown. They're looking quite sluggish, maybe off the pace a wee bit, as I say. So hopefully Josh isn't one of those, and he does his job. As soon as we get that one out of the way, and that we get the Ramirez fight, because I think I'll give it probably another year. I think Josh would be forced to move up in weight. I think.
Lady Alcoholic Fudge calling for Andy's missus to come on. Mrs. P has made an appearance before. Dave the Hater Lowback's mom has come on before, and his granny as well. So it wouldn't be untoward to get an extra panel. God knows we could do have an extra panel member at the moment, I suppose. Things are pretty light, but we are here every week with you at the moment. Andy's here, Rob's here. Undercard Rob, Charlie Edwards, Kyle Williams, David Oliver Joyce against Ironut, Baluta, Willie Hutchinson, George Davey against Jeff Thomas. I'm regretting asking you already, Rob. I'm so sorry.
No, but man, Jazzy Jeff is back in action. Interesting story. So normally you'd need Ozzy for this part of the show, but Ozzy's still christening the new gaff, so I'll jump in here. Jazzy Jeff, yeah, a mate of mine on Facebook. He fought Oisin years ago, Oisin Fagan in Ireland for the Irish lightweight title and lost by stoppage. Had a bit of a comeback. had a bit of a comeback on Prize Fighter. Won his first fight, I think, with a peach of a body shot, and I think he got injured or something in the second fight. But he's making his comeback anyway. He's had 2 pro fights on the comeback trail, licensed again. His ambition is to win a Central Area title and then retire. So I think he's like the wrong side of 30. He's like 36 or something, making his comeback, looking in great shape. So best of luck to him. I hope he wins the Central Area and gets to retire. That's a nice little goal to have. The Edwards brother, I hope he wears the same hair as the last fella, so they can really be like fucking Mossop and Possett or whatever the fuck they call the Riddlers. Them two like coming in on a badge into the ring, and that's about as much interest as they have in the rest of that kind. Yeah, but best of luck to Jazzy Jeff.
Yeah, good luck to Jeff. Looking forward to Josh Taylor next week. Bit of World Boxing Super Series. I'll be sat in front of the TV like a lot of you guys, no doubt, in the chat. Everybody's having a good time there. Still, thankfully, MB throwing in a few bits and pieces. Not Joe Gallagher, Boxing Man. Yeah, Jazzy Jeff, the human windmill, is coming back after an enforced time out of the ring. Big one for next week then before we move on to Belly of the Weeks and get out of here. Put in an hour and a half already. This is the big PBC pay-per-view. Fight TV's picking up in the UK. It's over on the Showtime pay-per-view. I think they're charging about $75 or something in America. It's well worth the price I'll be paying, let me tell you. Bakram Murtazaliev, 17-0 super welterweight, going in against Manny Woods. John Riel Casimero, looking forward to this one. He was supposed to be fighting Naoya Inoue at one point, I think. He's now going against Duke Micah, a fighter that I've been keeping a good eye on over the years. 24-0, 19 knockouts, the babyface Terminator. He's 29 years of age. This is time for Duke Micah to step up, and if he were to beat Casimero, that would be a really good statement. I'm looking forward to seeing him in action. He hasn't really fought anybody of any note, but you never know with these guys whether they're going to turn out to be the next Azuma Nelson or the next Maxwell Owuku. So I guess we're going to find out whether Duke Micah is the real deal in that WBO bantamweight title fight against John Riel Casimero. Regular scumbag Luis Neri, 30-0, is going in for the vacant WBC super bantamweight title. Probably won't be vacant for him once he fails weight or something. He's against Aaron Alameda, 25-0. Brandon Figueroa against Damian Vasquez, WBA super bantamweight title. And Daniel Roman, really good fight this against Juan Carlos Payano. Anything from the undercard, Andy, before we get stuck into the Charlos? What's taking your fancy there?
Well, obviously, you came our thoughts are on Luis Neri, and another one who's getting set up again for another title fight for the WBC. So maybe something to get Rob Tabbitt to ask questions about Mauricio Suleiman actually on that one. Just think the guy's just, he's been given all the benefit of every single doubt in that, and I also think he's one of these Mexicans who's also been put on the the list of he got done for clenbuterol and that, and it's now been he's been okayed with it and stuff. Fighters for that region can pass tests with a certain amount of it in their system and that. Undercard wise, I'm kind of looking forward to maybe Roman against Payano. See how the Zaliev gets on as well, but to me, it's all about the two fights between the two Charlo brothers, Rosario and Dertachenko. That is the two fights I'm really looking forward to. I'm actually in two minds whether to pay for it next week. Actually, I mean that's like 14 quid on Fight TV and that. It's cheaper than a pay-per-view would be here to get Dillian White on it, I suppose. But I think the only fights I'm going to be staying up for now, late for the weekend, is that I'm probably going to Lomachenko or whatever and stuff, because I'm just getting too old now to kind of keep going and stay up till 5, 6 in the morning, especially with 2 kids. It's like these days, mate.
I know. Lady Alcoholic Fudge says Casimero shot it from Inoue, ran off to Uncle Al. That's the best place for him, Rob, with Uncle Al. What about Uncle Al's undercard? Casimero and Micah. Neri, I tell you what, I know Neri's a scumbag and everything, but he's an exciting fighter, and him against this Alameda, who's 25-0 with 13 knockouts, could be a pretty interesting one. There's definitely some value to be had on the undercard, Rob. Anything that takes your fancy?
Absolutely not.
Rapimo Kelly, thumbs up from him on a Sunday evening.
No, not much. What was the undercard again?
It's Bakram Murtazaliev against Manny Woods. John Riel Casimero, world title against Duke Micah, 24-0. Luis Neri, vacant WBC Super Bantam against Aaron Alameda, 25-0. Brandon Figueroa against Damian Vasquez, and Daniel Roman against Juan Carlos Payano. It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's great. Fucking hell, man. No, it's alright, I guess. The Micah fight is okay. Yeah, no, I haven't got much to add, Steve, to be honest with you. Like, fucking hell, that's slim pickings, like, isn't it?
Slim Pickings. Porky's Corner's in the chat there. He says there's talkers and there's smoky bacon walkers. I'm going to have to warn you, Porky. Any Porky chat on, I might have to block you. So just be careful there what you're coming off with. I might have to just throw this at you.
There's talkers and there's smoky bacon walkers.
Talking about talkers, before we go on to the main event, a few more of the Patreon boys. This is the final pool of subscribers paying for the show, so you don't have to. Richard Lodder, Slip Digby, Ian Pirry, Sean Nomas Vidal, Gordon, Jamie D, Red West. Shout out to Holly Lewis, Holt, good lad, Mike Grigley, Jamie, Davey Man 100, Gary Lockwood, Matthew Reynolds, Matt, and Kevin Crawford. Patreon.com/Boxing Asylum. You might want to get in on there soon, let me tell you. Right, on to the main event then. What about this, Rob? This will interest you maybe a bit more than the undercard. Jamel Charlo against Jason Rosario, WBC, super welterweight, WBA, IBF. It's a unification all the way. Let's talk about that fight first of all. I'm going to say that they picked a nice one here. Rosario's win over Julian J. Rock Williams possibly flatters him a little bit. Maybe the Rosario that might turn up is the same one against Nathaniel Gallimore. I'm going for Jamel Charlo, knockout within 9 rounds.
Yeah, I might even go earlier than that. I think he might get him out of there with 4. I think Charlo's going to come out swinging with bad intentions. I don't think he's going to look crispy and clean. He's a little bit wild and a little bit emotional, isn't he? And that comes out in his performances. But I think he'll have too much firepower, and I think he'll actually blast him out. Where does that put him then? I don't know really. Like, is he the king of the 154s, or who's at 154? So I don't know. Like, he's not. I don't know if he's eventually going to move up to middleweight as well, like maybe, but yeah, I think it'll be an emphatic stoppage. I think he'll just come out letting his hands go and blast him out. I can't see a man posing any problems. Could be wrong, but I can't see it.
No, I don't think so either. There's a little bit of a Julius Indongo vibe. I know he's 21-1, but they're sort of maybe thinking, yeah, we'll get him in now before he gets found out against somebody else. Knocked out Julian Williams, obviously Jorge Cota. He beat Jorge Cota on a split decision. That's not necessarily a good look. I like Rosario. I think he's a good story, Andy. He's strong. He can punch. He's going to come and have a go. But Charlo's a different beast for me, and this is all set up for him to knock him out, I think, Andy.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that as well, mate, to be honest with you. I'm just hope I'm not kind of like say overestimating Rosario just based off his last win and stuff, but I still think there is a wee bit of vulnerability about him. Obviously, he can bang a bit, but I think Charlo, I'm going to go 7-round stoppage, 6-7 round stoppage and stuff. I just think Charlo's going to come out there looking to make a name for himself and stuff, and basically kind of move forward to like the kind of Tony Harrison situation and that as well. Which obviously he kind of like sealed the deal with the 11 stoppage and that, but this as well would kind of make him basically number 1 in the division. I would think if he isn't already actually, and there's 3 belts up for grabs and that, so. There is that. So I'm going to say Jermel by 6-7 round stoppage. As for the other Charlo brother, Derevyanchenko, I think it really depends what this Derevyanchenko's actually got left, to be honest. And obviously the Golovkin fight was heavy weather. Both guys took severe heavy shots and stuff. So I think Derevyanchenko might cause Jermel a bit of issues. I'm going to say maybe Jermel probably wins this on points. I'm going to say 160-112 today, Jermel Charlo. Could probably see them getting dragged in emotionally. I think it's Jermel who's the kind of more emotional one and stuff. Just need to wait and see. But these are the 2 fights I'm really looking forward to next week. And hopefully they deliver. Hopefully there's no wet farts and stuff like say, comments about poor training camps because of COVID and stuff like that. This is going to deliver for me because I've been really looking forward to these 2 fights for the last few weeks and that. So hopefully both deliver.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that fight between Sergey Derevyanchenko and I get them mixed up still. Jamal Charlo.
I think they're getting him at the right time too, though, Steve. Aren't they? Like,
do you think so, Derevyanchenko? I think he's gonna push him. I think for a certain time. Do you think that maybe that he's been cracked and this is set up for Charlo to stop him late?
I think Derevyanchenko might have got the nod against Golovkin. All right, it was a very, very tight fight, but he certainly put the beats on Golovkin the way we haven't seen it done before. So whether Golovkin is on the slide or not, it still takes a lot to do that to a fighter of his caliber. And in some of the rounds, he was manhandling him to a degree. So I'd say if it's that version of Derevyanchenko, then he gives Charlo problems and he maybe forces it. But I think he took a lot of the shots in that fight too. I think didn't he go to the hospital after that fight? And I think they're banking on getting him at the right time now, and I'm getting fucking blasted out within 6.
6 rounds. Yeah, I'm looking down Derevyanchenko's last few. Just getting a few texts coming in there. I'm looking for Derevyanchenko's last few fights. Has he really had a proper? Not a proper test. I mean, that's wrong to say. Since Julian Williams, 2016, fought Highland, who was basically came in on a wheelchair, effectively. Centeno Jr., nice easy one for him. Went the distance with Korobov. Rob went the distance in a terrible one with Brandon Adams, who'd already been beaten by that fella Williams, I think, who then lost to Liam Smith, and then in his last fight knocked out Derek Hogan. If Derevyanchenko is anywhere like we think he is, he's going to give him a significant test for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, but I just, like I said, I think that fight took something out of Derevyanchenko that you can't get back. Well, that's what I think they're banking on, making this fight, because both the Charlos have been matched pretty well so far, you have to say. They don't really take massive risks. So who knows? Like I think they're pinning their hopes on getting Derevyanchenko at the right time, and I could see a knockout the Charlo in this fight early enough.
Yeah, Lee the Alcoholic Fudge says they're all avoiding Liam Smith. Just before we go on to Bellews, Andy Ryan Deal threw in a question for you. He said, maybe if this bullshit Joseph Parker Jr. Farr fight happens, I can get down the Spark for some live updates. He's based down in Australia, is Ryan. I don't think Farr against Parker, it's a natural fight, isn't it? It'd be the biggest New Zealand heavyweight fight since Shane Cameron went in against David Tua, but apparently Farr's asking for a lot of money, and Parker would definitely be the A-side, Andy, because Farr, for all of his sparring exploits and that, he hasn't really done anything at all, has he?
Yeah, well, I think Farr, they don't beat him as an amateur.
Yep, he does. They have previous amateur beef, yeah.
Well, I suppose Parker's needing a fight in that as well, and I suppose again it just ties in. It's more that's just like Yoka against Duhaupas, isn't it? It makes sense at this time. You know, I don't know what the situation's like in New Zealand at the minute for people coming in and out of the country and that. Maybe it's problematic and stuff. Maybe you can get fighters for Australia and that. But
apparently they throw you in concentration camp if you haven't got your health passport updated. You're mandatory quarantine for 14 days.
Jesus Christ! But as it says, I mean, if he's tied to that kind of area, I mean, he's not really got a lot of options to pick from. You know, really. You know, Eddie signed the great Chinese hope in that as well. So we'll bring that up in Belly the week and that. But it's if it happens, it happens. It's a fight I'm not really all that bothered about, though. Honestly, I mean, okay, you've got the amateur background beef and all that sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, the guy knows his worth. He wants X amount, and he's not wanting to move for it. Then that's his business. You know, people, you know, they've not been earning money over the last few months and stuff. So if he's want to try and claw some of that back, and he's want X amount, then that's his business. At the end of the day, if it doesn't get made, it doesn't get made. I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Andy's not losing sleep. We shall not be losing any more sleep because we're going on to Belly of the Weeks and then we finish up to the evening. Had enough for tonight. I think we've done our bit as best as we can. Yeah. Oh, hang on. Just turning the old internet off there. Trying to keep up with what's happening on the WhatsApp.
I want to know what Andy's missus was saying there. It sounded interesting. Sounded more interesting than that fucking card anyway. I'll tell you that much.
I've got earbuds in the room, mate. I can't translate Norwegian at the minute with the earbuds in, and I couldn't make out what she was saying.
I think she said Junior Farr's going all the way to the top, Andy, didn't she? And you were casual.
No.
What about that Jerome Ennis uppercut?
Oh no, she got that an uppercut.
The uppercut, yeah. Famous old story from back in the day. Maybe I'll tell that again soon. Yes, Belly of the Weeks with episode 391. Andy's here, Rob's here, Steve's here. Thankfully, before we finish up, first nomination from me for Ryan Garcia is from Super Dicky 193 on Twitter. Work, 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 like I'm Rihanna, says Ryan as he gets down and dirty with a medicine ball. At least he's off the ballads, Rob.
You'd be shitting yourself hearing that, wouldn't you, if you're Tank Davis? He's working out for Rihanna. Okay, man.
Quite a few nominations are coming. Quite a few nominations are coming for Tony Bellew. Some classic virtue signalling from Tony. He's using his brother's gay wedding as an opportunity as a personal rebranding exercise. He said the comments about my brother getting married are very sad. I can't say I'm surprised though, to be honest. Growing up with him in the late 80s and early 90s, it was much worse, as they say it to your face and not on a social media platform. Being young, gay and black still isn't cool, I see. And straight after he tweeted that, his wife was thrown out.
And then he tried to say he didn't know that he was standing in front of that sign that said Kenny Dalglish is homosexual. So don't look around, mates, when I get pictures taken, mate. I'm just looking straight at the camera, mates. You know what I mean?
It must have been ninjas that put up that fucking
flag. It must have been ninjas, yeah.
And there was nobody nearby.
It was the SAS.
It was the SAS working in there. Can I say, aye.
Fucking hell, Tony. Just leave him alone, lads. Leave him alone. Fuck's sake. Let him go to his gay brother's wedding without fucking torturing him.
This is what I'm saying, right? So what happens, right? You go to a family event, you go to a wedding, funeral, or whatever and stuff like that, and you take pictures to post it on Twitter, social media, right? That's the first thing you think about doing, right? You go to a private event with your family. I'll tell you all day, I'm going to take some pictures, I'm going to post it on Twitter, I'm going to get people flexed and vexed up a wee bit. He knew what he was doing with that, surely to Christ. He knew what kind of response he was going to get.
Absolutely. It was a personal rebranding process, sitting with the rainbow masks on and all that type of stuff. He was using it as an opportunity, I think, to make a statement, was Tony. Talking about making statements, what about ring IQ boxing?
If he wanted to make a statement, he should have made one when his missus allegedly made those remarks against the poor fella in the hotel. Why didn't he come out in solidarity then?
Rob, as Jay Nady would say, not those kind of statements.
Exactly. Leave him alone.
Ring IQ Boxing nominated from Joe Kennedy. What did he say again? Oh, Eddie Hearn is a fucking hero. Strongest female stable with Katie Taylor, etc. Says him. Porky's Corner is the bigger dickhead. Who's he nominating here? Oh, Dean White thinks he was in the bubble. He'd have warned Dillian about the uppercut. So nomination for Dean White, aka Lamar Scott, aka Dwayne Povetkin, whatever he's called himself this week. Ben Thorne's another one. Bellew's missus looking thrilled at the wedding. Nomination for him, stroke her. Plus, says Ben, nomination for Eddie Hearn, telling us Dillian White wasn't angry enough for the first Povetkin match. He obviously needs more Diana Ball.
Aye, he was too nice to him. That he was so ferocious in the build-up. Actually, they put him in a fucking camper van away from them because he was.
I don't know about that, Eddie. He was fucking raging when he woke up, man.
I know they were that worried, Andy. They were going to have to separate them from the press conference.
Exactly. I need to keep them apart because Dillian was going to attack him in the hotel and that. Can you imagine Dillian White on his own attacking a fucking mob of 6 Russians? They're kind of nonplussed about that. So,
but watch out this time. He's angry. Pay-per-view, baby. He's angry.
Yeah, exactly.
He's singing Ain't No Sunshine again. Ain't no sunshine.
David Hay will be wheeled out next.
What do you think, though? Out by him, retired.
Nah, they can always squeeze one last one out you, Andy.
No, I suppose he's trying to get one out of Kell Brook still, eh?
Exactly. Good old Kell. Maybe a nomination for Kell coming up later. Who knows? Eddie's been nominated, naturally, by Ben Thorne's Bellew of the Week to Eddie the Salesman. Can't remember what he said in the video, but I did watch it at the time. Good evening, Ed. Absolutely. James has been nominated from Eggy Phil, as well as British Boxing Blog and many other people. Underneath Eddie's book, James said, to be honest with you, mate, my favourite thing about boxing is your interviews with Coogan, so I'll probably read it. So there you go. All the things in boxing, Andy. His favourite thing is the interviews with Coogan, so there you go. He's having a good time.
Coogie Bear. Nice and cuddly.
What's your favourite thing about boxing, Rob? Would it be a Relentless by Eddie?
It would be Eddie shamelessly selling his own products, like me shamelessly selling my own T-shirts. Now go to my Twitter page to find out more. Evening, Ed.
Oh dear. Yeah, Tony Bellew nominated by Numb Tapestry. That's Lee. I rarely nominate anybody, but this can't go without mention. This was Bellew talking about the aforementioned Kenny Dalglish poster. When was the last time someone asked you for a photo and you checked behind you? Sad like, but I got
loads of times.
I got ads here.
Fucking nearly every time I get a photograph taken is one of the first things I do. Matter of fact, what's over my shoulder here?
Oh dear. Rick Law has nominated. This is another one for Tony. Unfortunately, Tony was having a go at people for having a go at him. Blah blah blah. Pac-Man says, "You're right, Tony. Some people belong in the dark ages. Congrats to you and your brother on his big day." And then a rainbow flag. And then he put a link up to the Daily Mail article. Shocking moment. Wife of defeated boxer Tony Bellew launches homophobic rant at venue. Staff calling one a fucking queer and another a fucking dirty fag, according to the Daily Mail. This is what was. This is the little message that
was the night he beat Bellew. Is that the night Bellew beat Hay, or is that the night Bellew got iced off music?
I'm not sure, but it's on the Daily Mail. So
He got
Must be legit.
So she was upset that night.
Rick Law nominating him for that one. That's a good one. Liam Jordan has nominated again. Poor old Tony. Leave him alone. He just wants to be left alone. He's a celebrity. This was in response to someone writing underneath the comment. I love how you're a celebrity, Tony, yet still tweet about the most average, typical stuff. Man of the people is Tony.
I love the way he's the real brains of Britain. Like, what was he thinking? Taking that selfie of him and the missus with the rainbow masks on him and putting that picture out in the public, knowing full well what she was accused of just a couple of months ago. Like, what was he? He was on a wind up there, like, wasn't he? He knew what he was going to get there. Like, fucking hell, man. Leave him alone.
Oh dear. Ricky Gravel, who was knocking about in the chat, don't know where he's gone now, sent in a good one. Nomination for Adam Smith for saying the commentary isn't as biased as they acknowledge that Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua when he knocked him out. Did you see this one? Bean basically saying we can't be biased. Whenever Ruiz knocked out Joshua, we called it. We said Ruiz had just knocked out Joshua, so how can we be biased? Good old
Yeah.
Bean.
Yeah, you got Macklin saying like the previous weekend that we've got to be biased, They'll take it too far one day, and that they'll be like, I think I listened to this with Jim Watt and Nick Holland had their place in that. I was listening to Jim Watt on something unrelated the other night there and stuff. I'm saying to myself, I was actually watching an old fight card with Jim Watt as well. It's a wee bit refreshing actually just listening to them. Like you had, I think Barrera was fighting a British fighter. Who was it? Barrera fought Steve for England on a card over here.
Oh, was it way back in the day? Was it Paul Lloyd or the other fella?
It was Paul Lloyd, and they came on, start the show, and Jim Watts just says, look, it's a tough ask. He says Barrera is one of the biggest pound for pound fighters on the planet. It says, but Paul Lloyd just got up next to no chance in that, right? Can you imagine that fight happening these days on Sky? Johnny Nelson saying, "Oh, Paul Lloyd, that you see him, he's got world class power, and that he's a fantastic fighter. He's great. I think he's a better technical fighter than Barrera, all that type of shit, So it just shows you how far Sky slipped. And Jim Watt might have had his moments and stuff, whereas he's, the usual, comments he made and all that sort of stuff. But at least he was nobody's fool, shall we say? He came out of the scene and he knew how a fighter should fight and how they should go about it. He obviously, he'd done his time in that, but I just think it's just a shite that come out with the Sky and that. It's just relentless. As I said to you last week about ESPN and that, they spent the whole round of a fight talking about everything apart from the fight itself and that. It's just story times and selling the brand and the product and stuff and the quality. I mean, this week alone, I was really struggling to watch fights this week and just listening to Kriegel again, cropping up and that. I'm like, fuck this pish.
No, I can't listen to Kriegel. I couldn't listen to them. I listened to something else and just watch it. Although the Showtime wasn't too bad, to be honest. I thought Abner Mares was off to a bit of a ropey start, but he's no poorly. But I think he settled in quite well towards the end. We're talking about like the electric chair being compared to the deadly injection, Rob. When I say he wasn't too bad compared to some of the pish that's out there, as Andy would say. You got the likes of ESPN, Sky, and all them putting that in. I thought Mares, Bernstein, Mero and Alo's a bit suspect. I know they're not bad. I think Brian Custer's good as well. I think Showtime are the best of the bunch.
Melrose, we mate. He had me on his pod, but I asked him to come on our pod, and he said he would, but then he never got back to us.
Probably listened.
So yeah, exactly, yeah. So I don't know. The jury's out there. I don't know. It's not a strong panel, but Showtime are not in a strong place. And like, if Erickson Lubin is heading up the fucking card, man, come on, of all the fighters on planet Earth, Erickson Lubin is headlining the Showtime card. Give me a fucking break, man. Come on, how's Abner how's he going to make fucking good of that? Like, he can't do miracles, but yeah, Paulie's a big loss, but he's a loss for Sky as well, because he's not going to be back there either, because Eddie's not going to touch that with a fucking Paris poll, is he? Anyway, I'm not going to go down the road I was going to go down there, even Ed.
Absolutely. Fuck Showtime. Get work, go broke, get Paulie back in. I say JS Park has nominated Anthony Fowler. Tell you what, some arseholes in the world, says Fowles. I got an email today from the Advertising Standards Agency saying, have I been paying people to advertise Supreme CBD? I've never paid anyone to say anything about the product. They do so on their own back after they're amazed with their and then he cut the rest off. I'm not quite sure what the maze was. The maze was something. Well, how about this one then, Rob? Follow up from Fowles here. You see a lot of celebrities jumping on the bandwagon, says Yogi. And Fowler says, on this topic, I got offered £500 for one Instagram post on Forex trading last week. Told him, no thanks. I'm not letting my followers put money into something I don't believe in.
Well, as you know, I'm against fellas shamelessly plugging their own stuff. But how dare somebody make that accusation that Anthony Fowler is getting paid to advertise CBD? Where would they get that notion out of? For fuck's sake. Kidda.
Zeconomics nominated him for that one. Boxing History has been nominated by
give some of it to Fitzgerald. He might calm down a bit.
He could do with it. He could be overdose on it, knowing him. Could do with a bit of CBD, I think. Boxing History has been nominated by Carter. Correction, says Boxing History, after tweeting out that the Professor Azuma Nelson was born on this day in 1958 in Accra, Ghana. Correction, they tweeted out shortly after. Azuma was born in July, not September. Apologies. Still a badass, though. Yeah, we can all agree with that. Andy, you nominated this one. Liam Lawyer as well jumped in with it. Premier Boxing PBC trying to slip in fake news. A little Erickson Lubin statistic trying to pretend that he was still undefeated. What's this all about?
Yeah, so you know how PBC have usually got the fighters' records at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. They try to say that Erickson Lubin was actually undefeated, where he's actually got an L in his record to Charlo. It was a big L as well, iced in, 30, 40 seconds, first round, whatever it was in that. So I thought it was a bit kind of sneaky of them, you know.
It was a good one from Eggy Phil. It's like a fucking grooming gang, the amount of them come together to sell that CBD. It is getting a bit like that. Talking of which, Anthony Fowler has been nominated by Franny550. So my mate went to go for a corona test yesterday, says Anthony. Filled out all the forms, was waiting in a queue for ages. So thought, fuck this, then got off only to get a test that night saying he was positive. Very strange or what, says Fowler. Hopefully get him gargling the old CBD after that scare. Quite a few of Fowler than Andy. Eddie got a few as well, so did Bean, but loads coming in for Bellew. Any nominations from you before we finish up?
Yeah, I got one in. John Evans sent me this one in. So it's Sky have actually sent out a tweet asking the question, which fight would you like to be in history would you like to have been ringside for, right? So this guy called El Extraordinaire, I don't know what his Twitter handle is, but he says, I love to have been ringside for Joshua versus Charles Martin. Seeing AJ start his world championship journey in such style would have been class. Awesome night by Eddie Hearn. Somebody comes back and asks him the question, are you fucking joking? To which he comes back and doubles down and says, remember watching the pay-per-view and the atmosphere was electric. At the end of the day, it's all about those big nights. It doesn't get any bigger than that one. Prior to a sold-out venue, Frank couldn't fill out his living room at the time. That night changed the game. So
who said that?
El Extraordinaire, that's his name.
Why does he have to bring Frank into it for? What a nonce.
This is what they do. This is what they do, mate. This is the Matchroom FC fans. You know, it's like for example, see if you support a football team and your rival does something that's really bad or whatever, that, right? And they'll use that at some point. So like, it's just basically like it's whataboutery.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, you know. So if Eddie fucks up, for example, right, you can't allow Eddie to fuck up without mentioning Frank, whereas you can't allow Frank to fuck up without mentioning Eddie. So it's just like, I see Frank's coming out saying that that meeting with Eddie's likely not going to happen and stuff like that. So we kind of suspected that at the end of the day anyway. So trying to think what else have I got. Just let me check my phone.
Just while you're checking there, Andy, MB says big nights, he got chinned in one punch. I'm going to say something I've said before, and I'm not even trolling here. I think Charles Martin should have been allowed to carry on. I honestly do. I think Steve Smoger would have sent him back out again. Now the likelihood is he probably would have got stopped. But he was getting battered around. I think Charlie should have been thrown back out after that second knockdown, you know.
He was looking for the way out, man.
Yeah,
academic.
Walks his life like a god now. I want to throw in Teofimo Lopez as well. I'm going to keep a really close eye on this, by the way, because this kid's doing a lot of talking, by the way, that he's going to have to cash up. He just came out in the comments and says, Lomachenko's on his way out. I'm looking through him. So I think that's a bit of a bad move, actually. You know, I think Loma's just sitting back, letting Lopez do all the talking, you know, hype up the pay-per-view and stuff, and then it'll be a different story in the ring and stuff. We'll wait and see. I'm really looking forward to that one actually, because as I say, it's been 2 years in the making and stuff, and it's to see like the young fighters, Lopez for example, and yeah, to a lesser extent, Ryan Garcia, fighting Luke Campbell and that. He didn't want, especially now that Lopez has got world title, he didn't want him sitting on it as such. So he's called out the number one fighter in the division. He's got the fight, so let's get it on. I'm really looking forward to that one. But I do think the comments he's coming out with and stuff, it's okay. It's purely about hyping that, but I think this one about I'm looking past Lomachenko, I think that's going to come back and bite you in the ass. Like if
I'm buying fully into the hype. In mouthwatering prospect that fight is as well, behind closed doors, man. What a fight! Like, oh my god, the fucking Lomachenko taking on the young big punches. That's what you want to see. Like, fucking hell, like, whatever you say about Lomachenko, you can't ask for any more of him in terms of opponents. Like, there's nobody out there that he ducked. Nobody that he ducked along the way. Jumping up and down weight divisions. Could come unstuck. I feel like Lopez is going to have moments in this fight. Like, I really do. I feel like I think Lomachenko possibly could be not on the way out, but I think his amateur record is going to take its toll on him. I think there's going to be a time where he breaks down. You see it, like you can see it coming. Nobody goes forever, like so. Maybe Lopez is getting him at the right time, like. But I'm really looking forward to this fight. I know we're going off the topic about it of the week, but that's some fight, like.
Great fight. Looking forward to it myself. Also, yeah, Andy, did you have any more to throw in?
Yeah, just one to Eddie Hearn talking about the Showtime card. So I'm just going to try and see if I can play this over my mic. Give me 2 seconds.
We're all guilty sometimes of, what do we say in England, polishing a turd, where you have, something and you dust it up to make it look great. What they did was really clever. They said, this is our schedule. Everyone come back and went, wow. But when you dissected it, I think old Coppinger got a bit of stick because he said, actually, what am I supposed to look forward to there again? And
so that's Eddie talking about the Showtime cards that was announced a few weeks ago and stuff.
My God.
I wonder if he's going to be still thinking that this time next week. Because I'll tell you what, that card hopefully is going to be the best card we're going to have had this year so far, I think.
Was that before or after he headlined with Harper Jonas or Felix Cash against Jason Wellborn?
Yeah.
Or was that in between when he put Cheeseman on against, who did he fight again? Sam Eggington?
Sam Eggington. It was around about that time, mate, because it was actually in his front garden with the ring and stuff like that, so it could have been the week before fight camp or sometime during that.
Fucking idiot. Any nominations from you, Rob?
Oh, yeah. Have you seen it? Maybe you covered this before I got on. Mayweather versus Logan Paul. It's official. It's happening, baby. In Las Vegas, when the crowds are back, Mayweather is going to take on YouTuber Logan Paul in an exhibition boxing match, which is going to earn him crazy money, like silly money. Millions and millions and millions for a spar against a fucking jerk off, who I actually hope beats Mayweather this time, because I think he's just getting greedy at this stage and taking the piss out of the public, and is obviously broke as well, like cannot maintain that lifestyle, and is coming back for one more payday.
Is he that lad, Rob, who fought the other fella before on pay-per-view, wasn't it? Who did he fight before that, Logan Paul? He had another fight, didn't he?
KSI or someone.
Yes.
He lose to KSI or one of them other YouTubers, but he's going to fight Mayweather now, like, and Shannon Briggs is probably going to be his. If the only thing that's going to make this interesting for me is if they have Shannon Briggs versus Shannon Courtney on the undercard. But a farcical fucking event, disrespect to the sport, Mayweather laughing all the way to the bank to stretch out his party and bullshit for another 10 years before he has to come back and fucking fight Khabib Nurmagomedov or fucking Jorge Masvidal or someone in a crossover fight to pick up another check that he needs to pay off the fucking IRS with. Like, what is he playing at? Like, Floyd Mayweather versus a YouTuber. This is what we have in 2020. If 2020 wasn't fucking bad enough, like, Floyd Mayweather versus a YouTuber. You got Roy Jones versus Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather versus a YouTuber. What the fuck is the world coming to?
This is part of the DAZN's problem as well, because obviously they had the Logan Paul KSI on DAZN, right? And was it one of the highest watched fights on DAZN? I think it was.
Oh, no doubt about it.
So,
no doubt about it.
So you can see DAZN's thinking, they've got a boxing guy running DAZN and stuff like that, so they're seeing that, they're thinking, okay, we can get Canelo to fight a fucking grizzly bear, we'll do fucking mega millions views and stuff like that, shit like that. But I had one other one, Steve, is one for Eddie Hearn and Matchroom for signing the big Chinese fella. What the fuck are they signing that piece of shit for, man? You let Michael Hunter go and then sign that trash. I mean, it was just, this smacks me like a kind of Luis Ortiz type situation. But obviously, I mean, it's an option for them to kind of get Joshua fighting in China, big money fighting. That was a plan for 4 or 5 years ago and stuff. But fuck me, man.
He's like a big freak, isn't he, Andy? He reminds me like not even Valuev, because Valuev wasn't too bad. He's like a Ty Fields or something.
Yeah, he's a big unit, like. But I think he's got an Olympic medal as well. I think, to be honest with you. But other than that, I mean, he's fucking trash. I mean, yeah. It's clearly an option for them to try and, okay, Fury fight can't happen this year. We might not get it with fans in. Bob Arm's talking about maybe getting fans in by November, I think he mentioned. But this is clearly a chance. This is clearly an option for them. If they can't get the Fury fight, they're not going to get stadium fights in the UK anytime soon. So I think this is an option for them to go abroad, earn big money payday, probably get a good site fee as well, and everybody earns, everybody wins. Apart from the fans, obviously.
Fuck the fans, episode 391, Belly of the Weeks. I am going for the man himself, Andy. It's been a while since he got an award. It's got to be Tony Bellew for me. Strong week, though, to be honest. Who are you going for?
I'm going to go for Eddie Hearn, purely for saying that Dillian White was too nice and soft with Alexander Povetkin. Fuck aye. So I'm going to go for that.
And double it up as well for that Showtime polishing a turd.
Yeah.
Double offence.
The ultimate shit polisher is Eddie Hearn, by the way.
Al's running boxing, they all know it. Rob, who are you going for?
Oh, it's got to be Floyd, man. Like, fucking hell. You hoodwinked and bamboozled people into the fucking McGregor fight. Then you went to beat some fucking Tekken character in Japan, beat the shit out of him for another couple of million, and now you're going to sneak into the YouTube market and destroy this fucking moron in out of shape and not training. Like he said, he's come out and said he'd never trained for the McGregor fight. He just wanted to make it interesting. He wanted to give people a few rounds. He's come out and given the game away. So he's going to do it again. Like, it's a fucking disgrace to the sport. Like, they're one of the greatest fighters of all time is fighting a fucking YouTuber on a pay-per-view event. Shocking, like.
At least Tyson's fighting Roy, Rob.
Yeah, exactly. Someone will be in the comments saying, it's actually not signed yet. No, Rob, shut up, like. I know where this is going. Fucking asshole.
Nomination from Floyd this week for rapping, Rob Kelly. Andy, you went for Eddie. I went for Tony Bellew. Anything else you want to throw in, Andy?
Yeah, it could be just throwing the zone as well, because I think they've really kind of shown their business, they've shown their hand with the business plan and stuff. You know, what they want YouTubers fighting professional fighters and stuff. So it just tells you, you know, where they're at as an entity, and they've not got a clue. I don't give a fuck if they've got businesses all over the world. They're streaming NFL and all. It's good, fantastic for them, but they don't know boxing. You need a boxing guy in there to get that shit fixed out. But the way it's going, I can't see it lasting for much longer, especially the boxing side.
Logan Paul, by the way, is the fella who held his arms above his head and let Ryan Garcia punch him in the stomach to see could he take a body shot, and folded like a fucking deck chair, cracked it to a million pieces. So what the fuck is Floyd going to do to him? Like, Jesus Christ. Oh, for fuck's sake. Fucking hell, man.
Oh, yeah. We'll give him a WBA interim title for being an idiot. And DAZN, yeah, exactly. There's the old adage goes, Andy, the best way to get out of boxing as a millionaire is to come in as a billionaire. Maybe Len Blavatnik and his back of a fag packet strategy is finding that out the hard way. So hopefully we'll have some resolution soon over the next couple of years over the Canelo situation. But
next couple of years, right?
The next couple of years.
You and I will be retired by that point, man.
I think so, Flip me. Might be retired next week at this point. Thanks for coming on anyway. Exactly. Let's get out of here for another night then. Congratulations to everybody who's won Belly of the Week. I think all three of you, episode 391. And congratulations to everybody in the chat. You've made it till the end. Ricky Gravel, Lee, the Alcoholic Foch, Tosh Bear, Eggy, Phil, Arlene Burley, all the fellas. Take aims as well, boxing first. Thanks to our guests, Liam Taylor came on at 8:15 this evening. Rob Tabbitt came on around the 8:30 mark. Rob was here, Steve was here, Andy was here. We'll catch you all again next week, same time, same place, episode 392, and bye.